Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. This is No Soundbites Allowed, and I am your host, Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Tier. I am happy to be here with you today, and we are going to be starting. What? Wow. We just got our first message here today, and Dal mentions that the notifications are working. I don't understand. You know, it's amazing what YouTube, Twitter, all of them do. I know Twitter just switched over its system, so I may or may not be up on Twitter right now, but I'm glad to see that finally YouTube is doing something right. Well, folks, again, I'm Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Tier. If this is the first time that you are joining us, thank you. I want to welcome you here. We do a live stream every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for everyone in the world, so that if you want to have your voice heard, we believe in the First Amendment. We believe in your right to speak, and we want you to be heard. Your government may disagree. The internet overlords often disagree, but we want to hear what you have to say, and that's why we are here live with you. And as you can see, Dal is up with us right now. Thank you, Dal, for letting me know that we are up on Twitter at the moment. And so we take your chats and your phone calls and your tweets. You can call into 607-242-1582 and call into the show and be able to be heard. The only thing we ask you to do, if you disagree, just tell me why. That's it. No names, no screaming, no shouting, no insults, no personal attacks. Just say, hey, this is why I'm calling in. Because we want to hear your voice, whether you agree or disagree with us. It's perfectly fine. So let's get right into this, because this has been one hell of a week. You know, I keep saying that since January. It's been a hell of a week, pretty much every week, every Sunday when we get to this point. We have had crisis after crisis. We have had problem after problem that has been facing America and the people of America, and it has been getting worse and worse as we go week after week. And if you notice, every week, the news media keeps telling us something that happened 4 months beforehand, maybe 6 months beforehand, and they suddenly tell us, hey, you know that thing that you thought was, we said was absolutely not true? Well, as it turns out, it's absolutely true. You know, Hunter Biden's laptop, that was false until after the election. Then it was true. Hunter Biden didn't fill out his forms properly. He lied on federal forms about being able to get a gun and then dumping the gun in a trash container next to a school, an elementary school. Yeah, that was fake until, 4 months later. Yeah, it's absolutely true. We go and hear all of these different stories that we're being told. Oh, yeah, the border, there's no problem at the border. 1.3 million people later. Yeah, there's a big problem at the border. It's just story after story after story. And I bring that up, and it's one of the things I want to talk about today. You know, the whips that are supposed to be being used against Haitians at the southern border, except it doesn't exist. I mean, did you guys see that? Have you seen the photos? Not just from the front, but from the back. You know, the reverse angle. And hearing from the reporter who was actually taking the photos and said, never happened. We've heard from Maxine Waters this week. She's all over that bandwagon. You know what? Oh, we're whipping. It's horrible. Racism exists. Here is the example. It's these white cowboys that are whipping these black Haitians, except it ain't happening. Didn't happen. Not once. No evidence, no reports, no one's seen it. There's no video of it. There's no photos of it. It doesn't exist. But it's a great distraction from the news media to, one, push this whole intersectional critical race theory, racist ideology of America, to make you feel bad about being an American, to make you want to be divided and separated from other people in America, to open up our border and allow more and more people to come into the nation with absolutely no hint of anything about the law. And we don't know who any of these individuals are. And it's even worse than what we have been told. The latest news that came out today tells us it's way worse than what we were told. It is about 50% worse than what we were told. We have been lied to, and the news media is more than happy to do it. And it's very upsetting because when I see, I want to get to this in a moment, but I want you to know, what brought this up is I was on Twitter. Obviously, I'm looking at the news before the show starts up. I'm trying to see what's going on in the stories. Is there anything that I'm missing out there? And I see this message from Bob Joseph. Now, for those who are not in the Southern Tier region of New York, I just want you to know Bob Joseph, he is a talk news host and for a channel called WNBF. And so he's a journalist. He's an official journalist. And Bob, who I don't go on his show anymore. For 5 years, I would be on a regular basis. I don't go there anymore. I disagree with his news media bias. He puts this story out today. Okay, the 26th at 9:51 a.m. Aggressive reporter. This country needs more journalists who are able and willing to do what must be done to obtain important information. Now, he says that because this individual, Eric Wemple, is talking about Trump. He's saying Orange Man bad. He did a story about Orange Man bad. And so, Bob, this news media journalist with so much integrity is out there telling everyone, we need journalists to come out and cover the stories that no one's talking about. You know what my answer was? You mean like the 3 vaccine mandate protests? Interviews with the public who happened to be at the vaccine mandate protests, and publishing all of the content, all the video, all the interviews, hundreds of photos, which local media has either misreported, denigrated the participants, or ignored the events entirely. That kind of reporting? Or just the political bias that you like. See, we need to call out these news media organizations and individuals like Bob Joseph when they come out with this absolutely obtuse way of looking at it. Bob's out there saying, and this is a news media. This is your local news media. And it's not just happening in the Southern Tier. You can go in throughout the entire nation. This is what you're hearing on CNN, MSNBC, ABC, CBS. This is what they are feeding you. Oh, look, we're doing real reporting. Orange Man bad. We're doing real reporting. The Hunter Biden laptop doesn't exist until it does exist. Russiagate? That doesn't exist. It's not real. Russia collusion. It happened. All of these different stories they keep telling you, yes, because it matches an agenda that they have. But then when it's something that isn't on their agenda, kind of like actually covering the protests that have actually been happening, like this was the 4th event, the vaccine mandate protests in the Southern Tier of New York. It's the 4th time. Hundreds of people have come out to these events. Hundreds. This region has never seen so many people come out and protest. And we're talking about doctors, we're talking about nurses, we're talking about healthcare workers. I've had multiple interviews with people on the record and off the record talking about this because they're worried about getting fired. And these people are coming out and they are protesting, letting everyone know that the Hippocratic Oath doesn't exist anymore. That government is micromanaging your life, the most personal part of your life, your health. And the news media is telling you, well, they're just disgruntled workers. What do you mean disgruntled? They've been working for a year and a half in the pandemic, the modern day equivalent of the Black Plague, if you listen to MSNBC. And they won't even interview these people. They won't come to the events. They won't speak to anyone. They don't even know that we had a congresswoman come down. One of the members, Claudia Tenney, had her staff come down. She was in Washington, D.C. at the time, so she had to have one of her staff members come down. And I'm going to get to the comments in one second. But she had one of her staff members, a Mr. Ed Hickey, come down to read her statement on her defending the freedom and choice that Arnold Schwarzenegger, George Takei, and Joe Biden himself have said you don't have. You don't have. George Takei and Arnold Schwarzenegger and Joe Biden have all said, and we have reported it here, that you don't have freedom of choice in America, a nation defined by freedom and choice in our Constitution, our Declaration of Independence, in our amendments. We define ourselves by freedom, which is why we have 17,000 Haitians living under a bridge in the United States, because that's better than living in Haiti. That's why we have millions of people who are trying to get into this nation every year because of freedom and choice and opportunity. And they're telling you don't have it. And the news media won't even cover when a member of Congress is standing by constituents and doing what the people want, which is the Constitution. Can you imagine that, folks? Let me get to some of the comments here. So Dow mentions that, love how the detractors that don't know anything just scream, liar, then throw out the phrase, it's obvious to everyone, when challenged. The photographer who took the photo of the border agents said they didn't whip anyone and he didn't see any evidence of behavior the entire time he was snapping photos. And that is a confirmed fact. In fact, I have this news story on that, which is coming from ABC News, I believe. Or it may be Politico. I have both those stories. I'm going to show them to you so that you can see this for yourself. Because the news media for the week has been telling us nonstop it's whipping. They went from Haitians were getting whipped to they were getting whipped with reins, that they were being chased down with horses. None of this happened. But they're saying it, and they want you to believe it, and there are millions of people who only see the headlines. That's all they've seen, are the headlines, and all the headlines keep saying, whipping Haitians, racism at the southern border. They're not looking at the stories. People don't pay attention to news. They pay attention to the Kardashians. And when they see these headlines, they say, well, it must be true. Why? Joe Biden said it. Joe Biden's going to punish the border agents. Well, he wouldn't punish someone for doing their job, now would he? Because that would make no sense. Why would you punish someone for doing your job? So they must have been whipping Haitians. They are racist. That's the logic that the news media wants you to have in your head. It's a complete lie. Same thing about the vaccine mandate protests. Individuals who don't show up at any of the events, kind of like Bob Joseph of WNBF Talk News Radio, a official member of the media, won't go to a single event. There have been 4 events. He won't go to any of them, will not interview anyone involved with that event, and then wants to tell people, well, we need to cover the real news. This is your community, Bob. You should be down there finding out why people are protesting, finding out why doctors are protesting, finding out what's going to happen to our health care in New York State, and trust me, California and the rest of the nation are not far behind. What's going to happen to our nation when we see these doctors get fired and there is no one there to pick up the slack? What happens then? Because you're saying they're disgruntled. They're so disgruntled, these doctors, these nurses, they're so disgruntled that when there was no vaccine and we didn't even know what was going on, they showed up every day to work, to take care of people, to help them with their illnesses. And we last year, the very same news media was saying they are lauded as heroes. They are the greatest people, and you need to tell them they are heroes. Well, here we are, just 9 months after getting Joe Biden in, and suddenly they are disgruntled workers who don't want to do their job. They're the same people who are going in every day. They've had COVID, many of them. They have natural immunity, many of them. They have religious and medical reasons why they're not doing it. In particular, they also want to defend your right and their Hippocratic oath. So that's amazing to me. But let me go back to some of the comments here. Hot Chicks. Hello, Hot Chicks. Good to see you. She says, but the president is still my friend. The president is a bad doctor. Dow mentions that hopefully Tenney was voting against the House red flag legislation, which I am going to get to. Due process, 10th Amendment. And Hot Chicks, it's not just the 10th Amendment, the 9th Amendment is absolutely critical here. You know what? The choice and freedom and you, the individual in America, having power is so important. It was mentioned in the Declaration of Independence, in the Constitution, and the amendments. They kept mentioning it, that you have all the power, you have all the rights. And I swear to you, that is the reason why we see people from around the world come into the United States every year. That's why there is a line millions deep trying to get into this nation legally. God knows how long the line is illegally. We know it's over 1.3 million because that's how many people have entered the southern border since Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have been in charge. And you know, Kamala Harris won't go there. Joe Biden has never, in 48 years, has never been to the southern border. They have no idea what is going on down there, but they're going to tell you, don't worry, I know what's going on. It's racism. How would you know? You've never been there. You've never spoken to a single person there. When Kamala Harris went down to Del Rio, she went down to Texas. I think it was down by Fort Hood. She didn't speak to anyone. She didn't go and speak to the people who were crossing the border illegally. She didn't go and speak to the border agents. She spoke to the appointee from the Biden administration who says whatever Joe Biden wants him to say, and a bunch of the news media, and left. This is not how we do this. This is a violation of so many of our rules and regulations in this nation. Now, if you think I am wrong, if you disagree with what I'm saying, that's perfectly fine. That's what this program is about. If you believe that the evidence I am providing to you, the information I am showing you, if you think it's incorrect, that it's wrong somehow, no problem. Tell me where I'm getting it wrong. Let's have that discussion, because that's what makes America great, that we have the freedom, the First Amendment, the right to speak what we believe and to have a discussion. Unlike most every nation in the world, and God, the overwhelming number of nations in the world, is that some secret police agent would break down my door and shoot me in the head live as I'm on this program rather than let me speak. That's what happens in most of the world. We're talking about most of Africa. We're talking about China. We're talking about North Korea. We're talking about Venezuela, Cuba. They will shoot you dead. In Cuba, they detained someone who has since disappeared forever on live news. It was a live broadcast, and they just grabbed him and disappeared him. That person is probably dead because they were daring to say they disagreed with the Cuban Communist government. The Uyghurs in China, 1 million people, gone. They're religious, boom, they're off in a gulag somewhere, probably all dead right now. We never heard about them. Don't know what's going on with them. That's what happens in the rest of the world. That is what the rest of the world considers normal. And America stands out even above the United Kingdom, even above Germany, France, Australia, and New Zealand, and Canada. More than all of our friends and allies, we represent freedom and the ability to control our government by having a conversation. And that is important. Because if you don't do that, then you have a problem. But you see, we have a lot of people right now who, it's not just with the vaccine mandates. It's not just with them going out there and they're not bothering to actually see when people are speaking. It's not just that they're not bothering to see why hundreds of individuals, and I've got video pictures of it here, why we have people with their kids who are coming out to speak about what they believe should be happening to their own bodies. No, it's not enough that, because there's also individuals like Russell Brandt. And I'm going to get to the comments in just 1 second, but I want you to understand, people are figuring this out. They are noticing that our government is becoming more and more autocratic, and the news media is becoming a wing of propaganda pushing it forward. I'm going to give you a great example. These aren't my words. Here is Russell Brandt, a rich, famous entertainer, one of those people that people love to watch. They will fall over themselves to watch Russell Brand say the same thing that I've been saying for years. He's going to say today, as a sudden revelation, he suddenly realized something that you guys watching this right now already figured out. And here it comes.
Watched. Me, a person who I would think, broadly speaking, is from the left, a liberal, certainly not a Trump supporting Republican, with respect to those of you that are, I find myself in awe, gobsmacked, flabbergasted and startled by these revelations that Russiagate was a Democratic conspiracy. Let's unpack that now with the help of Glenn Greenwald.
Glenn Greenwald, a reporter, a very famous, internationally respected a reporter, a journalist, the same kind of person that Bob Joseph would hope to be. He just told Russell Brand and made it public that yes, the Clinton administration and the Democratic Party lied to you when it came to Russian collusion, that they orchestrated a cover-up of their crime, blaming it on someone else as they went about deceiving you. And the media knew it and pushed it forward. And Russell's just figuring that out. We've been talking about this for years, and Russell has just figured it out.
In Democratic Party politics. One of its partners at the time of the alleged crime, Mark Elias, served as general counsel to the Clinton 2016 campaign. The lie that Sussman allegedly told the FBI occurred in the context of his mid-2016 attempt to spread a completely fictitious story that there was a secret server discovered by unnamed internet experts that allowed the Trump organization to communicate with Russia-based Alpha Bank. I wasn't following that stuff particularly closely, but I remember it was seen as a defining issue in the election in 2016, still in 2020. It was something that was being talked about, and it was like being sort of in a way discussed as if it was just an absolute fact. To discover that this was propaganda, a construct, a confection by the Democratic Party, who of course are now in government, is kind of beyond disappointing, because you begin to question and query what other things may not be true. Once you recognize that people create certain truths in order to meet certain ends and aims, the idea that you might be able to trust their integrity obviously dissolves. This in itself is a big enough issue to cause concern. The Clinton campaign.
And so I want you to understand that. I mean, and this is someone who is recognized internationally. He's a multi-millionaire. He is famous already. He's got nothing to gain from this. And he's out there telling us about what? I can't trust the news media. The news media is lying to your face. They are perpetuating propaganda to take advantage of you, so that when you hear this, and just like with Russian collusion, it's absolutely true. Every news media station told you it's absolutely true. It's a fact. There is no question about this. Adam Schiff, Representative Adam Schiff, came on TV almost nightly to talk with Rachel Maddow and say that he had evidence, proof that there was a crime, that this is an act of treason by Orange Man Bad. And Russell Brand, he wasn't following it every day. He caught the headlines like most people do when they watch the news. And what did they find out? You were lied to. You were completely and absolutely used. And these are the people that we see today in the news media. People like Bob Joseph on WNBF are out there saying, we need more of those lies. We need to have more journalists digging up these lies and telling the public more and more lies. But the things that are actually important, like the fact that, yes, the FBI has been doing, the investigation still moving forward. We have found the proof. The Democrats lied to the public. The Democrats colluded with Russia. They created a crime, a series of crimes, and they sold it to you with the help of the news media. How are you supposed to trust anything the Democratic Party is telling you? How are you supposed to trust anything the news media is telling you? This is from back in 2017. Today is 2021. Today, you're being told that Haitians are getting whipped by U.S. border agents. It never happened. If they can't tell you the truth about something that we have the video, we have the photos, we have the eyewitness statements, and they're lying to your face with the evidence right in front of them, and they're telling you, no, it actually happened. Don't believe your eyes. It happened. That's got to terrify. I find that to be terrifying. Now, Dow mentions that the trip was entirely structured for a photo op to look like Harris was finally doing something. Oh, when he's speaking about when Kamala Harris went down to the border, quote unquote, when she was forced there because Orange Man Bad was going down with Texas Governor Abbott, and they actually went to the border. They actually looked at the children in the cages that again, the Biden administration will not let you see. When Ted Cruz, and we showed you this back in March, when Ted Cruz went down to the southern border and he got video because he got into the installation and saw 40,000 kids in cages packed like sardines with COVID running rampant in the facilities. You know what? What did the Biden administration do? Oh, you can't be here anymore. No one in the news media can be down here. You have to wait until after they fix the problem. Then you can come down and look at the cages when they're empty, after they've shipped kids out to Chattanooga, Tennessee. Now we had, the Haitians. We're seeing 10,000 Haitians were living under a bridge in Del Rio, Texas. An 18-hour flight from Haiti to get to Del Rio, and they weren't flying in. They were walking up from Brazil, thousands of miles, because Joe Biden guaranteed at the time, and this was about 2 weeks ago, Joe Biden had said, I'm not going to deport any of the Haitians. And they started marching on up. Back in June, he actually said, I don't want to deport any Haitians. I don't want to deport anyone from our southern border. So they started marching from Brazil. They didn't stop in any country along the way. They didn't stop in Belize. They didn't stop in Costa Rica. They didn't stop in Mexico, which is, according to the UN, the law. That's where you actually have to go and make asylum. The first safe nation you run into. No, they never had that intention. They want to be in America, and they knew they weren't going to get deported. So they kept on coming. 10,000, we were told, came and went to live under a bridge because that's better than living in Brazil. That's better than living in Haiti. That's better than living in Mexico or Costa Rica. To live under a bridge is better than to live in Mexico or in Costa Rica or in Brazil. That's incredible. We should be so happy to be Americans, that people would love to live under our bridges because that's an improvement in the quality of their lives. I don't know what other thing to tell you that America is great. I mean, absolutely, phenomenally, intensely great, that people are willing to be criminals living under a bridge in America because that's better than their life in every other part of the world. You don't do that because, oh, that's a horrible place. Oh, I'm going to a hellhole. No, You don't travel thousands of miles on foot to break the law and to live under a bridge. You don't do that if that's not better than every other place you've been. You have to cross 12 countries to get to America from where they were. And in those 12 countries, nothing was better than living under a bridge as a criminal in the United States. If that doesn't mean America is great, I don't know what you define great as, quite honestly. And now we have all these liberals. Russell Brandt, he says it himself. He's a liberal. And he's dumbfounded now because the very people he's supposed to be supporting, Hillary Clinton, the Democrats, Joe Biden, they're lying to his face. And the proof keeps coming out over and over and over again that everything they're telling you is a lie. So why should you believe? Remember, these were the same Democrats. I was talking to a doctor the other day at the vaccine mandate protest. There were many of them there. And I was talking to one of the doctors, and it was a very interesting conversation. How can you have confidence in a vaccine that in October 2020, Kamala Harris and the host of all of the NBC, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, CNN, they all came out and said, and it was Nancy Pelosi and Andrew Cuomo went on to national news and told you, I do not trust the Trump vaccine. That's what their words were. They do not trust the Trump vaccine. The very same drug, that very same vaccine that they didn't trust in October, in January, they trust it and they want you to have it. And today, they're going to fire our doctors and our teachers because you don't get vaccinated, because they are mandating it, that you don't have a choice. They're taking away your freedom for something that they told you a year ago they didn't believe in, that they thought was horrible, that they needed to see more testing, they needed more science, they needed to understand the data more. And so that was a year ago. And in the space of the year, they went from, I need a little more science, to you don't have freedom. That should trouble people, because it doesn't matter whether the fact that they're Democrats or progressives, or it should trouble you that a government is cracking down on the individual lives of its people, and it is doing three things at once. It's telling you that the doctors who are medical professionals who know the risk of living with COVID, they understand the risk better than any of us. They deal with it every day. They've been dealing with it for 2 years now, and they don't want the vaccine. And they don't want to push the vaccine on you. And the government's saying, well, they're disgruntled. And we see that in the news. And they're telling us that if you don't do this, well, you're anti-science, except the science has been changing consistently, and they themselves didn't believe in the science just a little while ago. And then they're telling you you don't have the freedom that is actually outlined and detailed in the Constitution, in the amendments, and in particular, the Ninth Amendment. Let me get to some of the comments, because I saw some coming up. And Dow mentioned that Brand has in the past pushed socialist and communistic policy. I've noted that he's drifted way more center in the last few years. Same thing with Bill Maher. What we see is the more people pay attention to the details, and the more that they have experience with what the communist and socialist ideology is, which is what we're seeing. This is the communist socialist ideology being implemented. This is the Democratic Socialists of America. These are their ideas. And the more we see them, and Joe Biden is playing up to this because that is his base. And the more that we see that, the more we see that there is an authoritarian trend. The same authoritarian trend that existed in Russia, that exists in China, that's in North Korea, that's in Venezuela. It is in Cuba. It is in every single nation that has ever gone socialist and communist, and or communist. And no, the Nordic countries are not socialists. They say, they have admitted it themselves. They are not socialists. Bernie Sanders wants you to think that, because when he told you that we all need to be like Venezuela, Venezuela then turned around and started killing its own people, 5,000 people, as reported by the New York Times 3 years ago. But let me get back to, so that's why you're hearing Russell Brandt and Bill Maher turn around. But I want to go on to Klaus. Hello, Klaus. It's good to hear you. I'm not sure, Klaus, are you from the United States or somewhere else? Don't know. It's just a unique name. Klaus says, they know if they wait it out under a bridge, they'll be coming in soon to start their lives over again, but not going through the right process. Well, Klaus, you're more right than you think. And what if I told everyone that you were lied to? It wasn't 10,000 people. It was 17,000 people. And what if I told you that out of the 17,000 Haitians that were living under a bridge, what if I told you that 12,000 of them, not 1,000, not 5,000, 12,000 of them were taken from the bridge and spread out throughout America? They are now living in America. They cut the line, and whether they have COVID or not, they are living in America, and we don't know who they are. They didn't get vetted. They could be all kinds of criminals. They could be members of ISIS or Al Qaeda. We don't know. They could be. They could be school teachers. I don't know. But they could also be criminals that escaped from their nation and now are entering the United States, knowing that the Biden administration is so busy trying to get them shipped off to different parts of the country that they don't care that they broke the law. They don't care who these people are. They just want them to be out of the line of a camera. They're more worried about the politics. And you really shouldn't be surprised by that, because they don't care about Americans in Afghanistan. And remember, notice, in the news media, they have completely stopped talking about that story. You have no idea how many Americans are in Afghanistan right now. You don't even know how many people came back to America after Joe Biden abandoned them. The news media won't talk about this. It's insane. It should be the number one story. It is historic. No president has ever left American citizens in harm's way as Joe Biden has done. Never happened. Complete lie, complete reversal from his position in 2019. Completely lied to the American people back in April 2021. And now we see that he's left these people. The entire administration won't talk about these people, and we have no idea how many of them exist. And Joe Biden's supposed to care about you. The Democratic Party cares about you. I have been trying for an entire month to get Representative Antonio Delgado of the New York 19th District to even mention the word Afghanistan, to mention the Americans in Afghanistan, to just tell me that he will try to convey to the Biden administration and to Nancy Pelosi and to Chuck Schumer, members of his party that he does speak with, that the American citizens left and stranded in Afghanistan are important to his constituents and to members of the American public. I have been asking him for a month. I've written him letters. I have commented on his videos. I have gone to his live streams and asked the questions, and not one member of his staff will speak. But he did send me a nice letter saying, he gave me a nice letter of a summer recap that doesn't mention Afghanistan, that says he's a great guy and I should vote for him in 2022. I swear to God, he sent me that unsolicited. He unsolicited sent me a letter saying, hey, I've been doing a lot of work in the summer of 2021. I'm a great guy. I won't mention anything about Afghanistan. I won't try and help those Americans get back to America. My party abandoned those Americans, and we have completely disowned them. But don't worry, I'm a great guy. You should vote for me in 2022. This is insulting, folks. But let me go back. I want to go back to some of the comments because I know people are still speaking here. So Klaus mentions that the vaccine has caused thousands of deaths and permanent long-term damage, which there are some cases of that, as it has been reported, including, as Nikki Manjai had brought up, some individuals are having reproductive issues, the swelling of testicles. It has happened. And unlike what you were told on CNN by Dr. Fauci, who said it has never happened ever. His words, look it up. Dr. Fauci said, never happened. It's never happened. Look up the CDC reports. There are at least 9 reported peer-reviewed cases of individuals who have had the same thing. Their testicles swelled and they became impotent. Now, is 9 the same as 0? No. Is it also a widespread event? No. Does it mean that this is going to happen to every man? Not necessarily. But you can't say, as Fauci has done, that it doesn't exist and this is completely made up. He didn't interview the person who was suffering from this, allegedly. He did not see their medical records. He didn't even bother to look at the medical records that already exist, that the United States CDC has already presented, the WHO have already presented, that actually says, yes, it's a reality. It does happen to a small number of people, apparently, but it happens. Instead, they want to go with the lie. Why should you trust them when it is a lie and the CDC is giving you the very evidence to prove the lie being said by the CDC and Dr. Fauci? I'm speaking specifically for YouTube and the Facebook censors. I am speaking specifically about the case of the swelling of testicles, which is a medical fact. It has happened as a result of vaccines. That is absolutely true. But I also need, because I've said that, I also need to mention that you should seek out your own doctor to discuss your medical health and history and the options that are available to you. And the doctor should use the Hippocratic Oath to do what is best for you and your health care. And I'll say no more about that, but let me go on. Klaus mentions that the pandemic can be treatable, and that he believes that the Democrats are destroying everything they touch, which seems to be the case. Klaus also mentions that he is from the USA. And again, Klaus, I only ask because it's a very unique name. There aren't a lot of Klauses in the United States, so I wasn't sure. And we do get a lot of people who watch the show from overseas. Lily Wallace mentions that now, if we do a really great job on the new vaccines, healthcare, reproductive services, we could lower the population by perhaps 10 or 15%. There are some people who would like to lower the population, and many of them are the eco-fanatics out there who believe that we should be more, our energy should be at the same levels as it was in the 1920s, which means no TVs, no computers, no cell phones. That's all got to go. No, your heating, your electric, your stove, that has to go. Because to create the electricity for all of those things, well, that creates pollution. And the only way to truly answer that, because solar doesn't work, the geothermal doesn't work, hydro doesn't work, wind power does not work. Even Michael Moore produced the Planet of the Humans, the documentary, detailing that it doesn't work. And in fact, that you are being lied to. That every time they put up one of these solar power generations, they also put up a regular powered, like a coal or nuclear powered plant, because they don't work. So the only answer is you have to get rid of everything you have. You have to live as if you're in the third world in America, and that would do it. Mind you, that doesn't take care of the fact that China is the largest polluter in the world, and they pollute more than we've reduced. nor does it address the fact that the United States, a fact since 2015, the United States has led the world in reduction of greenhouse gases. We reduce more gases in a year than all of Europe combined, and I am including England in that number. We are 6 times more than the next closest country in the world. But, you know, the news media doesn't like to talk about facts. Watching Trains Go By. Hello, Watching Trains Go By. That's an interesting title. Reminds me of a poem, I think. Says that they'll become criminals or they'll be working restaurants handling your food tomorrow. I am about to address that, what Governor Hochul has said, and I want you to understand what the implication is of taking your doctors and making them unemployed without getting unemployment. And how is that going to affect you? Because no one wants to talk about, and then what happens to you? What happens to your health care? We're going to talk about that. Costco's, I think they're working at the farms in Midwest Bill Gates' belt. Yeah, Bill Gates has been buying a lot of farms. I wonder why. Lily Wallace mentions YouTube censorship will not let me write Bill Gates quotes. I'm not surprised. Lily, there's a lot of things they won't let us do. And a lot of things I can't say that I would like to. Hot Chicks mentions that Bill Gates, he may wear a pink sweater. That's fashion. Klaus mentions that Biden gave the Taliban thousands of rifles, to be exact, 600,000 rifles and small arms, 33 planes, and a couple thousand APCs, armored personnel carriers, as well as other vehicles, just to start the list. Yes, he did. But they want to take away our guns. That's right. Joe Biden said on CNN, as we have covered on the program previously, that he wants to take away 9mm handguns and any handgun or any firearm that would allow you to fire 20 rounds or more. Anything, which essentially means about 95% of all firearms that are currently made around the world. He wants to take them all. And they're going to do it because of the red flag laws in conjunction with the mandates, the vaccine mandates. I'm going to explain that in a second. But because of the vaccine mandates, they now have the ability to go into your home, to take your firearms, and as a consequence, to take your kids. And I will prove that to you in just a moment. Watching Trains Go By says, and for people worried about terrorists sneaking in, it's easy to spot the difference. The ones with identifications are terrorists. Check the fine print for CIA certification. That's funny. In not a ha-ha kind of way. Dow mentions that he saw a story where Mexican authorities are finding abandoned IDs on their side of the border that indicate refugee status in other countries from South and Central America. Yeah, they're just throwing them away. See, if you come from Haiti and you go to Brazil, to get into Brazil, you have to claim asylum. Brazil is not just letting an open, they're not the United States. They don't have an open border. So to get into Brazil, you have to claim asylum. And they gave up that asylum to come into the United States. So they started off doing the right thing. They went from Haiti to Brazil, claimed asylum. Brazil took them in. America opened up the floodgates. Thank you, Joe Biden. And so they decided to come on back. They went, oh, America's better than Brazil. Absolutely. I'll go live under a bridge in America because that's better than living in Brazil. You don't have to like it, folks. That's what happened. You don't have to think it's the right thing. You don't have to say, I'm not asking you to become a Republican. I'm not asking you to be a libertarian or a conservative. I'm not asking you to change the way you vote or what your ideology is. But I do want you to understand the reality and the thing that the news media doesn't want you to do. What are the consequences of the actions that are happening? When we get lied to, what happens? Because the rest of the world is reacting to this. And the reaction has not been positive for the United States. Not here in our country, nor in our interactions with the rest of the world. We are becoming isolated, not because we want to be isolationists. We're not becoming more like Rand Paul. We're being ostracized. We are being thrown to the side. They don't want to be around us because they can't stand what we're doing. And if you don't believe me, you should listen to Boris Johnson, the United Kingdom Prime Minister, as he talks about the British people, the British citizens that were left in Afghanistan because of Joe Biden. Listen to France, President Macron, as he talks about what Joe Biden did behind his back. This is the funniest thing. Remember the story that just came out that the United States made a deal with the United Kingdom and Australia. We're going to help Australia build its own submarines. And we knew at the time, Joe Biden, the master diplomat that he is, with the master foreign policy ideas, he decided to do this with Australia and never told France, who had $40 billion in contracts. They were employing their people. And Joe Biden took the food off the plate of a bunch of French citizens. And Macron, obviously, was very, very upset about that. And the answer to that, and the solution there, was really simple. While he's having the conversation, while Joe Biden is having a conversation with Boris Johnson and more importantly with Australia, all he had to do is go and give a phone call and say, hey, Macron, by the way, I'm making a deal with Australia. We're going to give them the ability to make submarines. Did you know that? Do you want to talk to Australia about this too? That's all he had to do. Make a phone call. Talk to our allies and tell them what's going on. Not just doing stuff and then letting them figure it out afterwards. I don't know. Maybe you think I'm crazy. Maybe you think that's just not important. Who cares? International policy? What does that matter? Anyway, let me go on. By the way, folks, I do want to mention that if you are finding any of this to be of interest, if you are hearing about news events and the details and consequences of these events, then you find that to be of interest, please do like, do share. Most of all, please subscribe, because that gives us the opportunity as we approach 1,000 subscribers. It lets us reach more people, not necessarily because they all agree with us. And again, it's okay not to agree with us, but because it gets more people speaking, and I think that will help to fix things. Let me catch up. I want to catch up to some. I know there's a lot of comments here. Let me try and catch up, folks. I'm just very upset about all this because it keeps cascading. But let me focus here, catch up to the comments. Watching trains go by mentions, actually, according to Dr. Paul Alexander in the UK, 25,000 and 14,000 respectively. There are millions of people who may have had adverse reactions to a medication. And I don't doubt that. I'm not familiar with Dr. Paul Alexander, and I'm not familiar with his research, so I can't say that's absolute, but I believe there are a lot of people who've had reactions. Hot Chicks mentions my CIA identification is encoded in the barcode of my driver's license. No, they don't use that. They just listen to your phones. They got the authorization from the Obama administration to listen to your phone every day and to read all of your email. So they don't need a barcode on your driver's license. They just turn on your phone and listen to you. That's a fact. They did do that. Authorization by the Obama administration so that the FBI can listen to your phone calls and can read your emails. And they do. Largest servers in the world are dedicated to recording all of America's phone calls and emails. That is a fact. It's true. Hot Chicks mentions that's why I never show it to Facebook. Klaus says he doesn't like fake news very much. Well, but most people get their news from the fake news. And I'm not going to tell you that any one news source is perfect. I'm not saying, well, you have to watch Fox, or you have to watch the Daily Caller, or you have to watch someone on the left, on the right. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is you have to read more than just the headline, and you need to read more than just one source. I read 22 different sources on any given day. I spend about 6 to 12 hours a day reading the news every day. That's why I remember so many of these facts and why I can go back. And that's why we can go back on this program back 20 years talking about these subjects, because we're reading, and I'm reading stuff from the BBC. I read stuff from The Guardian. I read the Israeli Times, the Times of India. I read from, there's a couple of them I can't even pronounce, which is out of, not Paraguay, right next to India. Starts with a P. God, I forget the name now. As well as Sky News down in Australia, a couple of the Canadian papers, as well as all of the Americans. So it's not just, well, read one source, read multiple sources. Read into the paragraphs. Compare the difference between the stories that one person is going to give you versus the other, and see the paragraphs that one or the other or both just delete. Because I can tell you, that's how the news gets done. On the right-hand side, they're going to have certain paragraphs that won't exist in the left-hand side's coverage of the same news event, of the very same news event, and vice versa. The left's not going to include certain things that the right would include. They are isolating you and not telling you the truth. The truth is in the middle. And it's not a subjective truth. I hate when people say that. There is no such thing as your truth. If you say that, you don't know what you're talking about, because the truth is the truth. There is only one truth. It's not subjective. It's objective. You may have an interpretation of the truth, but that doesn't mean the truth changed because of you. That's not how it works. There's the truth, and there is your interpretation of the truth. Your interpretation may be right or wrong. The truth didn't change. And the news media, and this is another way the news media wants to play with people and to make you think, oh, I have my truth. Well, no, you don't. And that's a lie. And you are deluding yourself. It is a delusion of grandeur to say, oh, well, there's my truth. No, there isn't your truth. There is the truth. And then there is your subjective view of the truth. I'm not telling you that you can't have it, but I'm telling you, don't lie about what it is. And when we hear progressives constantly saying, well, it's my truth, I don't care what your truth is. That's not the truth. That's your subjective interpretation. You want to tell me, when we listen to people from the progressives, from the left, when they talk about, well, there's slavery in America right now. When we listen, matter of fact, I'll put it in perfect context. Maxine Waters. What's Maxine Waters saying right now? That we have people, these white men on horses that are whipping all of the Haitians. First of all, most of the people who work for the United States Custom Border Patrol, CBP, are Hispanic. Overwhelmingly. It is an overwhelmingly Hispanic department of the government. So no, they're not white people running around. Those are Hispanics on those horses. They don't have whips, they have reins. They're not hitting anyone, and that is a fact. So there's a bunch of, but her truth is, well, it's about slavery. It's about racism. That's Maxine Waters' truth. That's the truth that CNN and NBC and MSNBC want you to believe. They want you to believe it so that you will back them as they push their BLM and Antifa agenda down your throat and teach your kids that if they're white, they're a racist, and if they happen to be any other color, if you happen to be a minority, well, then you're a victim. Totally destroying their opportunities for their future. You're destroying their self-worth. You're destroying their self-image. Because that's the only choices you have. According to intersectionality, according to critical race theory, you only have two choices. You're either a racist or you're a victim. That's it. That's their entire world spectrum, and everybody fits in there. That's pretty depressing. No wonder there's so many progressives that are addicted to drugs and overdosing. Let me get back to some of the comments. By the way, folks, if you disagree, You can call in, and I'm going to do a better job of keeping up with the comments. I know there's so much there. But you can also call into the show at 607-242-1582. The phone line is on. It is available for everyone. And the only thing we ask is if you disagree, which is perfectly fine, be respectful. Tell us why you disagree so that we can have that conversation. That's all I ask for. And if you agree, you can call in too. I'm perfectly happy with that too. Klaus mentions that only the elitists use all the resources they want, but leave scraps to us peasants, these evil thinking people, which would be the communist ideology. There is a ruling class that make all the decisions and everyone else just lives the same miserable life, which I have experienced when I lived in Moscow in 91. Watching trains go by, curious, what counts as a soundbite, and does that apply to us or just the name of the channel? That's a good question. Thank you for asking that, watching trains go by. When I say soundbites and why we say no soundbites allowed, I'll give you a great example. So going back to the vaccine protests as an example, okay? So the vaccine protests, I have covered each of those events. They're about, on average, I'm there for about 2 hours at a time. And I come up with a video which is roughly about half an hour long. It includes several interviews, several dozen photos, and some various other bits and pieces. But it's roughly a half hour documenting a 2 hour event. Okay? If you look for the news media, first of all, you won't see their coverage for 75% of all the events that have happened. The one time the news media showed up, their coverage equated to their entire coverage of a 2 hour event with 600 people spontaneously showing up. People of every single party, every single political belief, people of every color and creed and religion you could name, doctors and nurses, that when they showed up, 600 of them, the news media turned that into a 1 minute and 30-second conversation, which included 15 seconds of actual footage. I have more footage in my conversation with this woman who is, she identified herself as Amy, this mom. I spent more time talking to Amy, and more importantly, Amy told me more about why she was at the protest than you will get from all of the rest of the news media in this entire southern tier region of multi-million-dollar companies with hundreds of employees, and I, one man that doesn't have any of that kind of money or prestige, I have more content about what's going on with the local community with that conversation with this one mother. That's it. That's what I mean by a soundbite. They took hours and they turned it into 1 minute and 30 seconds, and the content actually dedicated to getting the community, hearing the community's voice, amounted to 15 seconds. I did it in 30 minutes. That's the difference. Why? When I say no sound bites, that's what I mean. I think that makes it pretty clear about how I draw that difference. Oops, it keeps doing that. Sorry, that wasn't supposed to show up. All right. I was supposed to mention, by the way, folks, I've been talking about what's coming up with the protests. I want you to know it's going to be on October 9th. October 9th from 3 to 5 p.m. in downtown Binghamton, there will be another vaccine mandate protest. This will be after Governor Hochul has fired tens of thousands of doctors and nurses. And I mean literally tens of thousands of doctors. There is already a hospital that has shut down in upstate New York. I believe there will be a hospital in the southern tier region that will be shutting its doors and not serving the public because of Governor Hochul and what she has put forth. She's just going to try and replace them. I'm going to tell you why you can't do that. But there will be another event. There is a lawsuit that is going on right now. They are looking to do a freedom rally. No, that is not the Antifa symbol. For people who are wondering about that, this is not an Antifa event. This is nonpartisan. And it's for teachers, healthcare workers, veterans, college students, and everyone. And that will be on Saturday, October 9th. And I'll be talking about it more in a few moments. Again, let me keep going through these comments here. Looking back, Lily mentions looking back years from now, we're going to see that this was a leap towards a very, very autocratic government. Lily goes on to say that today we have devices everywhere, light bulbs, TV sets, even refrigerators that are all interconnected into the internet and have access points to be able to listen and monitor you. And that's true. Smart homes do listen to you, and it is something that the government does look to get access to. Klaus, thank you. Pakistan. Couldn't think of the name for a second there. Could not think of it. Watching trains go by, more information from various sources allows us the ability to connect dots, like having people from different disciplines working together to line up these dots. Well, it's like the answer to the question that you often may hear someone say, well, you're not a doctor, you're not an engineer, how can you come up with these conclusions? It's because I'm not an idiot. See, I don't need to be a doctor, I don't need to be a scientist or an engineer to be able to understand data. I can't collect the data. And if someone says, well, you can't collect that data, the answer is, you're correct. I cannot. I'm not of the right field. I don't know the technical steps to do that. But once they have collected the data and they write up a report, and that report has charts and data, I can read a chart. I can read the data. I can read the numbers. And I don't need to be a scientist to read the numbers and understand the context. I can read you know what? Let's look at the CDC numbers about gun control and how that has completely failed. Let's read the newspaper about the Chicago this weekend, and I guarantee you, I have not checked. I swear to God, I have not checked. I guarantee you, if it has not been reported yet, it will be reported that somewhere between 24 and 5 people got shot in Chicago this weekend. At least. There will be probably somewhere between 2 to 12 kids were shot in Chicago this weekend. That is a fact. That happens. Why can I say that? Because I read the trend. I read the Chicago Tribune, and I know that they have a tracking count of how many people are shot in Chicago every day. And I know that they report every weekend the weekend totals, which are far, far higher. And I know that Chicago is one of the most deadly spots in the United States, and that they have a extremely high, they have record numbers or near record numbers. I think it's the highest in 20 years, number of people who are being shot every day. It also happens to be a Democratic stronghold for the last 87 years, and they have the strongest gun control laws in the nation, hands down. Everything that every Democrat has ever wanted on gun control exists in Chicago and has existed in Chicago for decades, and it all fails. Do I need to be a doctor, a scientist? Do I need to be a police officer to be able to understand that? No. I need to be able to read. So that's the answer to the question that people often say. Well, why? You can't know that. Well, I can. That's why I read multiple sources, and that's why I look at the data, because I can read. No one ever responds to someone like that. They should. When someone tells you, you're not a scientist, no, but I can read, they won't know what to answer with that. It's like, what do you mean? Well, I can't get the data, but I can read what the data says. Watch their heads explode from the left when you say something like that, because they won't know what to say. Really, they won't. Dow mentions that to be truly informed as people, we have to be I'll be the researchers and develop critical thinking skills. Well, definitely the critical thinking skills and researching in the sense of, let me look at multiple sources of news. And it's not hard to figure out what's a credible news source either. There are rules about that. There are things that you look for. So I agree with you, Dow. Hot Chicks mentions this is immutable truth. Watching trains go by, my truth equals my bias. I agree. That's a better way of saying it. Probably a less wordy way of saying it. I'm pretty wordy. But yes, my truth equals my bias. Lily mentions social distance equals shadow banning. Blocking and deleting of our ideas and the truth has nothing to do with keeping us safe. And I agree. When we see Twitter and Facebook unperson individuals, that has nothing about making anyone feel safer. It's just silencing people. No, I have to protect you from disinformation. You mean like when Joe Biden says that black people can't figure out how to use the internet to be able to register to vote, which he said on CNN at a nationally televised town hall? Are you talking about that misinformation? Saying that black people aren't smart enough to use the internet? Because that's what Joe Biden said. I don't see anyone trying to shut him out. No, what you should be saying is be smart enough to understand and to look at enough other information to do your homework and find out that, well, no, black people actually use computers as well as anyone else. That African Americans, depending on the state, are almost as much, if not in some states even more, registered than any other group. They just don't go out and vote. Then again, most Americans of any race, color, creed don't go out and vote on a regular basis. That's the problem. It's not that they don't have access. It's just they feel apathetic about it. And why wouldn't you feel apathetic when you watch the news media lie to you and 6 months later turn around and go, oh, that lie, let's correct that. Sorry, oops. It's already affected your life. Doesn't matter. Oops. Layla mentions that when you tear out a man's tongue, you are not proving him a liar. You're only telling the world that you fear what he might say. And I agree with that. Mavis mentions it might not be the Antifa symbol, but they should find something that isn't the communist fist. I'm not sure who printed up the form. I'm sure they thought that since that fist that we're speaking about, Mavis is mentioning, and by the way, hi Mavis, that fist, as you can see here, and I know it's not the best, it's a little fuzzy, but that fist is very, very popular among younger people. It is seen as a rallying symbol. And so while I believe it has some other negative connotations, but it's still seen as a powerful symbol of protest and rally. So while it loses some people, it also brings in others that might be more aligned to that. It's it's a balancing act, and I didn't create it. It's not mine. This is what they made. And by the way, I do expect on Tuesday to be doing an interview with one of the founders, one of the individuals who has organized all 4 of the vaccine mandate protests that have occurred in the Southern Tier so far, to explain why they're doing this and what they hope to see happen. And I should have that interview late Tuesday. Yeah, I think it's going to be late Tuesday. I should have that available for everyone. Dow mentions could use old Polish solidarity symbol of clasped hands. You know what? That's a good symbol. You're right. When they were fighting the communists, that was a wonderful symbol that they had. Haas says, I think I'm shadow banned on YouTube comments because I don't get thumbs up or down and responses for my comments I used to get 3-4 years ago. I don't know. There are a lot of changes to the algorithm in YouTube constantly. And I have already been suffering from that. I've gotten a warning. I've gotten a full strike. I was shut down for a week. Theoretically, they can, and we are expecting that they're going to try and shut us down for 2 weeks and delete the channel eventually, because we don't shy away from the subjects that matter to everyone. We don't necessarily get to cover everything we want to, but we're not shying it away. We're trying to give you the information that's available out there. So it's quite possible you could be shadow banned. Now, I did want to get to a couple of things here. So I showed you Russell Brandt. I showed you how we have groups like WMBF who are out there saying you need to see more of the media bias. You need more bias in your life. And we should have more reporters putting out bias. But these are the same people that won't even go out down the block to cover a protest that's happening right in their own community, which is kind of insulting. And I take upset with that. These are the same kind of progressives and the same kind of progressive ideology that goes around and says, well, we need to make a woman look good in a movie, so we're going to lie to you about history. The Queen's Gambit. This is a story, real story, about a woman, Nona, and I'm going to say her last name wrong, Nona Gaprindashvili. I hope I got that right the second time. She is a champion, world-class chess player, beating men left and right. You know what? Netflix said, that's not going to sell. We need to make up our own character like Disney. We need to change the reality. We need to change the facts, because their truth says that their character is the only woman in the world who's able to play chess against men and win. Something that Nona has already done and is well known for and is expert. In fact, Netflix went so far to say there's Nona Gaprindashvili. She's a world champion and never faced men, which is an absolute lie. And in fact, we see that Netflix is being sued because of this, because she has played men. She is world class against anyone. So, and you see, that's the thing. The lies aren't just in, when I say media, it's not just the news media. This is Netflix, your entertainment, the time when you're supposed to turn off your brain, and they're counting on the fact your brain is turned off. We want to send out a message about women. And so we're going to lie about women. We're going to lie about the true, real life success of women so that we can tell the story we want to tell. What, the story's not powerful enough to know that there is a woman who has made the achievement, that they have the success, that this is a reality, so that when young girls are watching this program from Netflix, God help us, they're watching this and they're going to say, well, maybe one day I can be that woman. Is that, could I be her? Well, it's a fake movie, so maybe not. Maybe that's not reality. Isn't it much more powerful to say, here's the real woman in the real world who's actually done it. Yes, little girl, you too can be a world-class chess champion, beating anyone, because there's a woman who's already done it. And you can be just like her. It's not a fiction created by some executive in Netflix who's all about pushing feminism. Stop trying to push the feminism and just be a human being and tell the story of the human being who actually did the thing. Don't make something up just so you can say feminism. Go and actually show the human being who did it and say successful human. I mean, that's what I would think. Not everyone would agree with that. But that tells you about the kind of censorship we are seeing, the way that the media is altering this. And yes, even Russell Brandt has woken up to this. Yes, we've covered Bill Maher, who finally woke up to this after Bill Maher was pushing this message all day long. But I wanted to get to you and tell you, did you see this story? It came out today at 10:30 Eastern Standard Time. that Mayorkas, the Biden administration Secretary of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas, admits, now earlier in the show, I was telling you about the fact that there were 17,000 Haitians. You were told 10,000. CNN told you 10,000. MSNBC told you 10,000. 17,000 Haitians were living under a bridge because America is that good. And 12,000 of them, 12,000, have been sent all over the nation. They broke the law because whether you agree with illegal immigration or not, whether you think illegal aliens should be able to enter this nation like it's a swinging door or not, they broke the law. The law says you cannot do what they did. And the punishment isn't like anything horrible here. We're not saying we're going to throw them in jail. We're not saying that we're going to give them back-breaking labor. We want to send them back to their own country. That's it. We want them to go back to their own country. Get out of our country, go back to your own country, come back legally. More than happy to accept you legally. And instead of doing that, we see that the Biden administration, which they didn't tell anyone when Mayorkas, Alejandro Mayorkas, when he was sitting in front of Congress for 3 days this week, he was sitting in front of Congress answering members of the Senate and the House of Representatives, and he was speaking to each and every one of them, and they were begging. It was Ron Johnson, Senator Ron Johnson, was begging him, what are the numbers? How many people actually have been dispersed, allowed to break the United States law and go anywhere in this nation? How many people? And this man said, I don't know what that number is. I don't know. I don't know if it's hundreds. I don't know if it's a couple dozen. I don't know if it's a couple thousand. That's what he was saying this week to you on C-SPAN. Covering it live, he said that knowing the American people are watching it. And now, when no one's paying attention, while everyone's watching football, presumably, or they're on this show, then that's when he turns around and he goes, oh, no one's paying attention? By the way, it's 12,000. Now you may say to me, Mike, why is that a big deal? Because that's 12,000 people that just learned a very important lesson. Laws in America don't matter. There is no law in America. See, if one law doesn't count, none of the laws count. If you can break one law with impunity, when the law enforcement agents allow you to break a law, there is no law that you have to follow, because it's picking and choosing laws. You're picking and choosing laws at that point. The Biden administration is picking and choosing which laws they want to do. They're like, and remember, they were telling you all this week that they had thousands of people that they were sending back. We're rounding them up and we're sending them back because we've closed the border. The border is closed for 1,000 people. And 12,000 people get to run anywhere in America and go anywhere they want. And by the way, they're not done counting because there's another 5,000 people. They don't know where they are. They don't have any of the numbers. They're not sure what's going on. Don't believe me? That's okay. This is from the Daily Mail UK, and I am quoting approximately, I think it's about 10,000 or so, 12,000. It could even be higher. The numbers that are returned could have even been higher. What we do know, what we do is we follow the law as Congress have passed it. Except Congress hasn't passed a law saying that illegal aliens get to walk into America anytime they want to. There isn't a law that says that. There is no law that says if you happen to live under a bridge in America after entering the country illegally, we're going to let you in. There is no such law. It does not exist. There is no law that says if we catch you breaking and entering into the United States, you can go anywhere you want in the country. There is no such law. It does not exist. Mr. Mayorkas is lying to the American public. He wants you to believe that there's some kind of reason why he's letting these people go, why he's letting these criminals go on. I'm not saying they're bad people. These may be wonderful, beautiful. Each one of these Haitians could be Mother Teresa reincarnated. I don't know. What I do know is they willfully broke the United States law. They didn't care about the law. They cared about their lives, which I understand. I can understand why they would. But they broke our laws, they got caught, and then they weren't punished. So when it comes to when they're driving down the road, why should they follow the speed limit? When they're hungry, why shouldn't they steal food? When they need somewhere to sleep, why shouldn't they break into your house? If laws don't matter, if we pick and choose which laws we're going to apply, then none of them apply. That's why we have, tens of thousands of people defecating in San Francisco, right next to Nancy Pelosi's house. They're just taking dumps in the middle of the street because laws don't matter. We have people who are breaking. How many Walgreens have shut down in San Francisco? Last I heard was 19, because it's okay to steal. If you steal under $1,000, you can walk in, and how many videos have you seen where people walked in and filled up garbage bags and then just walked out the front door and no one said anything? And 19 of these Walgreens shut down. How many people in these communities now have to suffer? How many people are not able to go to Walgreens to get their food, their their medications, to get whatever they need? They can't do it anymore because laws don't matter anymore. Laws are unimportant. And we've taught that lesson to the Haitians. It's the first lesson on entering America. They come to America, and the first thing they're taught is laws don't matter in this nation. Not if you're a Democrat. If you are a Democrat, and you're black, so you are a Democrat, Democrats don't have laws. Laws do not apply to Democrats. They only apply to conservatives and the race traitors of the universe, like myself, like Larry Elder. That's the only people that laws apply to. That's the lesson we taught them. That's terrifying, isn't it? All right. So getting back to some of the comments, I know people were upset about Tinder and YouTube and the censorship there, and we have been fighting it for a long time. Rumble is not censored. That is true. And we would live stream on Rumble because we are on Rumble. The problem is it costs money. It costs more money than I can afford. I can't spend the money on it. I lose money as is. So that's why I'm on the free sites. But we do repost onto Rumble every right after we get done with the show. Klaus mentions, let's see, heard the same thing for InfoWars. Watching Trains Go By says, if someone like Crowder with 5 million subs got 10% of them taken, 10% of them to talk to him if he was removed, one after another, constantly uploaded, it would be constantly flooding instead of a channel being gone when deleted. If only that were possible. But, like I said, the phone number is 607-242-1582. It's hard to get people to call in. And I understand why. Because if you call in and you make a comment and you say, you know what, Mike, it's true. It's wrong to teach Haitians that the first lesson about America is you can break the law if you're a Democrat. That's horrible. We shouldn't be doing that. And everyone else in the world is watching this. And every person, all the minorities of the world, quote unquote minorities, all the people of the world are watching this and saying, oh, wait a minute. Laws don't apply if you're a Democrat in America. I'm going to come to America and I'll be a Democrat in a heartbeat because America is better than where I'm living. And this is the lesson that we are teaching the world. This is the consequence. Why did 1.3 million people come to the United States from February till today, September 26th? Because they were told by Joe Biden in very clear terms and repeated by Kamala Harris that they're not going to deport them. that they're not going to suffer for breaking the law, that there is no punishment for breaking the law in the United States. And if by chance someone is paying attention and watching them, they will be sent back to Mexico, as an example. And in a week, they can turn around and try and re-enter the United States, and they'll probably get away with it the second time. Because that's what they do. You're not going to be punished. No one's stopping you. They're just going to stop when you come across the border. Hopefully, not when a camera's pointing in your face. But if it does happen to be pointing in your face, they're not going to stop you anyway. That's the lesson we are telling the world. And when you look at that, when you listen to the Walgreens and see that they're shutting down because of shoplifting, and we see all the crime, and we see that they're trying to defund the police, and we see that crime is going up. They promised you, 22 cities, they promised you absolutely up and down, if you defund the police, there will be less crime. They are liars. Because that isn't what happened. And as we watch the crime go up and up and up, they're not saying, oh, let's not defund the police. What they're saying is, oh, no, we're going to defund the police. You know what we need to do? We need to take away your guns. That's the problem. We defunded the police, but we didn't take away your guns. So now we need to take away your guns and to take away your police. Said by this very same people who are lying to you, saying, oh, yeah, and Haitians are getting whipped. They will lie to your face to do whatever it takes for them to get an advantage. If any Democrat would like to tell me that I am wrong on these things, if you would like to dispute whether or not criminals are allowed to steal in San Francisco and California, that they are allowed to be able to steal things as long as it's under $1,000, I would love to have that conversation with you. If you want to tell me that you think I'm a liar, that 17,000 people, Haitians, would rather live under a bridge, and that they were just taught that if you live under a bridge in America, you will be sent into America to be given food, aid, medicine, and you will live a better life than you live in your home country. If you want to dispute that with me, I'm perfectly happy to do so. If you don't think the Daily Mail is a good enough source, I have others. But this isn't disputed. These aren't things that are in question. These things are happening. Now you may say, Mike, but that's not the lesson they're being taught. Really? What do you think the lesson is? For those on the left, I really want to hear your answer. I'm not picking at you. I'm not trying to beat up on you. I am trying to understand, because I think it's pretty bloody obvious that we are teaching people that you can break the law, that you can completely invalidate the law and do almost anything that you want as long as you are in the right racial group. If you have the right skin tone, that if you believe in the correct religions, if you swear fealty by willing to vote for the right organizations, then you can do anything you want in America. And we see it happening over and over again. And you think I'm wrong? I don't think so. I mean, think about it. We had Joe Biden. He's coming out and he's saying that he wants to go out there and he wants the Border Patrol to suffer. He wants them to pay. Now, it's Texas Governor Abbott, according to Politico, came out today at 10 o'clock, right after we found out that Mayorkas was lying to us and that it's 17,000 people were living under a bridge and he sent them into the United States. More than 75% of them were shipped right on through and taught how to break the law in America. Well, Governor Abbott says, I want to hire the Texas agents who are doing their job, trying to slow down the people who are breaking our laws and trying to enter the nation illegally. And you've seen the video. I've shown it on this program last week. You saw the video, or earlier in this week. You see the video. They're trying to get the horses. Yeah, he's blocking one guy. There's 15 people that just walked right around him and kept on going into the United States. And according to Mayorkas, at this moment, Those other 15 people, they made it into the United States. They could be your neighbor right now. They could have been moving into the apartment next to you. They could be squatting in your neighbor's backyard. They could be down at your city hall applying for all of your tax aid. They're going in and they're using your taxes to then fund themselves, which I'm not upset with helping people with our tax money. I am upset helping people who broke the law and cheated the system, and then they're asking us for money. I have a problem with that. I have a big problem with that. I think we all should have a problem with that. You broke our laws, and then you're going, well, I need to resettle. I need help. Well, then you shouldn't have broke my laws. Get out my country. If you don't like that answer, you don't have to. I'm not asking you to like the answer, but I do want you to appreciate the consequences of what is being done, and the consequences are negative. People will say, well, you're just a racist. Yes, of course, right. The fact that I'm a black Puerto Rican my entire life, 53 years, does not count. Like I've never experienced racism before. Being a poor black man growing up in the Bronx, I don't know what racism is. I could never have understood that. So the only answer is I must be some kind of racist because it's done so much for me. That's why I'm middle class. I've had to work my entire life. I own my business and that's about it. I own my house. Good for me. I'm not rolling around like Donald Trump with gold-plated everything. I don't understand these people when they say this. So the Border Patrol has an option because Joe Biden is out and he wants them to pay, as reported by, of course, ABC News. ABC News, they're going to pay. What did Joe Biden say? It's outrageous. I promise you, these people will pay. Remember, they didn't do anything. They didn't break any laws. They did their job. Joe Biden wants to punish people for doing their job, and he wants to reward the people who broke our laws. He wants to reward the criminals and punish the law enforcement. I know the news media didn't publish it that way. The media isn't talking about it in those terms. That is what it is. They don't want to tell you that because then you have to think about this and then you have to go, well, that's not good. That doesn't make any sense. That's not positive for anyone. That's a problem. And the answer is yes, that's correct. That is the correct answer. This is a problem. When you are rewarding criminals and punishing law enforcement, you get a bad result. We saw that with defunding the police. We punished police and fired them for doing their job. Criminals were empowered. And criminals have gone out and stolen and robbed and killed people at higher numbers than we've seen in decades. Gee, something is fundamentally wrong with this problem, with this scenario. And I say that, and I want you to understand. And you know what? It's particularly dangerous, and this is really important, folks. Pay attention here. It's particularly dangerous because when Joe Biden says, I'm going to make you pay, you know when the last time he said that was? That was on September. This was Joe Biden promising that ISIS-K is going to pay. They were going to be punished for killing 13 Americans. It actually turned out to be 14 Americans and two parents, two adults that were British and one British child. 14 American servicemen, 2 Brits, and a child. And he said, I'm going to make them pay. And you know what Joe Biden did? His senile butt went out and killed a family of 10. He killed 10 civilians. They're going to pay. I'm going to get ISIS-K. And he killed civilians instead and then lied about it. You remember? Joe Biden, we're going to make them pay next day. Ooh, boom. Yeah, see, we're going to stand up for America. We're going to make them pay. It took a month, and then we found out, oh yeah, you killed a family. A guy and his kids. A father and his kids. Not ISIS. There was no secondary bomb. Nothing else blew up. You killed a kid. A bunch of kids. This is how Joe Biden made them pay. So, you know, considering that and realizing that Joe Biden is now saying that border agents have to worry, I'd be worried for any Americans anywhere in the state of Texas, because Joe Biden will try and, I don't know, he'll send a drone down there and doesn't know where he's going to send it. God knows what consequences he's going to have because he doesn't know what he's doing. And you may say, Mike, you're just being hyperbolic, and that's just not true, and it's not fair. I'll say that it's not fair, that I'm being honest about my feelings. And to quote the far left, it's my truth. You can't dispute my truth. But I definitely think it's a consequence, and no one's talking about it. No one is talking about these things. Why? Why are we not talking about it? Why can we not talk about Afghanistan? Why can we not talk about the Americans who've been abandoned? They didn't choose to be in America, to be in Afghanistan. They were left. We knew we were leaving them on August 18th. That's the first time that we heard General Milley say, all the Americans who want. He emphasized it twice. All the Americans that want to come back to America. Who doesn't want to come to America? We got a line of like 5 million people who are trying to get into America right this second. Why wouldn't an American want to come back to America and stick it out with the Taliban, who are screaming death to America on national TV, on US TV? We got the ISIS-K trying to kill and actually succeeding in killing Americans. We've got Al-Qaeda, who are running around going, hey, we got to get some Americans too. There's plenty of them. Let's all get at least one. I mean, that's the scenario that you're talking about, and you're saying you want to stay there for that? Are you out of your mind? People aren't, that's not masochism. That's insanity. No one does that. That's why people were jumping onto planes and falling hundreds of feet to their death. Again, how great is America? America is so great that someone will jump onto a plane that travels at 50,000 50,000 feet into the air, traveling at 700 miles an hour, and they're going to try and cling onto a plane in those conditions because falling to their death, which is the obvious result, is better than staying in a country like Afghanistan. That's how great America is. The dream of making it through, trying to be like, what's his name? Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible, Mission Impossible 6? They'd rather try and reenact the Mission Impossible scene than and die than live in their own country. That's how great America is. What a country. We are an incredible country. Mind you, I think Britain's not too far behind. I think, France and Germany have their issues, so does Australia, but, they're still all better. But America is definitely at the top of the list. Watching Train says that Walgreens loophole, speaking about the robberies in San Francisco, about Walgreens under $1,000, might be coming to our own homes someday. We've seen them pass laws that's stupid. If they burglarize you for under $1,000 and you can't actually, you know what? Cynthia Nixon, you may be more familiar with her as she's a character. She was in that show, Sex and the City. And as I recall, she said, let them steal. and I want to make sure I get this right because I don't want to misrepresent it. Bingo, here it is. It's been reported. Well, first one I see right now, and just to show you, it's right here. New York Post, May 28th. Cynthia Nixon slammed for a pro-shoplifting tweet from TMZ. Cynthia Nixon believes desperate people should get a pass on stealing. Let's see, Daily Mail. Cynthia Nixon is slammed for suggesting CVS should let people steal. Yeah. So, yes, they're already saying you can steal. It is coming. And she is a Democratic Socialist. The Democratic Socialists think that people should be able to steal from you, just like they should from a business. Mavis mentions that the same people who want illegals to come into our country probably lock their doors at night, but don't get the irony. Well, you know, look at the irony. Nancy Pelosi has a wall. A bunch of our leaders in Congress. Chuck Schumer has a wall around his house. You can't get into the apartment complex for Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. It is secured. It has guards. You can't get in there. They have security. Cori Bush spent $70,000 on private security. You don't get security. You don't need police. They got them. So, yeah, it's not just ironic, it's insulting. Dow says that, so Biden wants the Border Patrol, wants to punish them, and recent focus on the use of horses has breathed new life into the eco-activism in ending the use of horses in all facets of human activity. Well, yes, Dow, why should you use a horse that eats grass and carrots when you can use a dune buggy and a drone that use up about 50 to 500 times more fossil fuels? And that's just in making the stupid things. To make the electric car, to make the electric drone, the rare earth metals and the items that it takes to go into the lithium batteries is more toxic than 500 horses. So obviously, we must go the most eco-fanatical way, and that means we have to get electric cars and electric drones and electric electric cameras so that we can run all this electricity to do the same thing that a guy on a horse does. Because the economy, not the economy, the environment. We have to take care of the environment. So we can't use horses. We've got to use electricity. And we need to, cause more poison to the earth, according to the way these ecological fanatics look at it. It is more poisonous to the earth to create a drone and a dune buggy and a camera that's going to run 24/7 to watch the border than it is to have a guy on a horse. But they would rather have all of those electronics than the guy on the horse because the environment doesn't make sense. Klaus says, seems like Texas Governor Abbott, his hands are tied by the feds and Biden administration. Hundreds of thousands of illegals have made it in the USA since Biden took office. I'm sorry, Klaus, that's not correct. It is according to the Customs Border Patrol, it is 1.3 million people that we are aware of. Don't know, there could be more, but at least 1.3 million people have come into the United States since February. That is documented. It is a fact. I have shown the numbers on the show before, coming from CBP themselves, from the United States, U.S. Customs Border Patrol itself. Yeah, it's 1.3 million people. So the problem is stupidly large, and it is growing, and it is not slowing down because Biden isn't going to deport anyone. And he just proved it. 12,000 Haitians, they did not get deported. They got sent over to San Francisco. Well, actually, they didn't get sent to San Francisco. They got sent to your house. They got sent to your neighborhood. They didn't go where Chuck Schumer lives. They're sent to where you are. It's not over by where Cori Bush and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez live. It went to your neighborhood with your taxes coming out of your pocket to pay for it. Klaus mentions Joe Biden rewards his son Hunter for doing such a stellar job that, he did. Yeah, what's the job that Hunter did? My dad is the vice president. He was a senator. Now he's president. Give me $10 million. Maybe you'll be able to talk to him. You'll get a great deal somewhere down the line. It's worse than nepotism. It's worse. I'm telling you, this is insane. And let me ask you guys, am I wrong? Am I misrepresenting this? Am I misunderstanding this? Am I presenting the information to you in a way that doesn't make sense? Because Joe Biden is, he actively in his words and his style is using the same words and style to denounce law enforcement in the United States in the same way that he denounced at one point the Taliban and ISIS. Now, of course, ISIS is now, the Taliban are now our friends. They're our international partners. The fact that they've been trying to kill Americans for 20 years, well, that's a bygone. Those are bygones. We're giving them money. The Biden administration is in the process of trying to give them $50 to $100 million. That's just because, well, it's $100 million. It's a rounding error. No one's going to notice it. It'll make them friendly. They are our international partners, after all. Really, I would love to hear someone on the left tell me how I'm misrepresenting this. I would love to hear them tell me how I'm not reading the news, the international news, that I am somehow not understanding the situation. Because I want them to tell me, how am I getting it wrong? Tell me how Joe Biden isn't treating our law enforcement at the border the same way. In fact, worse than he's treating the Taliban. The Taliban got 600,000 guns. They've got planes. They've got helicopters. They've got tanks. I mean, literally, they have tanks. And they're getting $100 million. And the guys at the border, they're just going to lose their jobs. Hopefully, they would still be able to get unemployment, unlike the people who are suffering from the vaccine mandates, who are not going to get unemployment. And while you are being told all of this stuff, I want you to remember that you need to keep in mind that the biggest problem in America right now isn't the Taliban, isn't our open border, isn't the 1.3 million people who just ran through our border. It isn't the next caravan of Haitians that are coming that just saw 12,000 people get in, so they're going to try, because if the other guys got in, why can't they? And everyone else in the world that's going along with them saying the same thing, if they got in, why can't I? No, the real problem in America right now is that parents are saying, we don't believe in critical race theory. Do not teach my kid that if they are white, they are a racist, and if they are not white, then they are a victim. Please don't do that. Please don't segregate my kids in schools, as we have seen happen. Because only black kids can learn with black kids, only white kids can learn with white kids. Because, critical race theory, intersectionality, gender identity politics. You can't learn something if you're not exactly the same thing as the people around you. You can't learn something if it's not about your specific color, gender, sexuality, blah, 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 down the line, infinitum. And so that's why it's the most dangerous thing in America right now is being able to protest. These protesting people, these people who are going to all of these shows. And I know I see some comment. Yeah, Yeah, Klaus, it's 1.3 million. It is really, it's insane. And again, where am I getting the data? As I have shown on this program before, all you have to go to is the U.S. Customs Border Patrol, look up their monthly report. And it's issued every month, and you can go back month after month after month, do the math. It's a little over 200,000 per month, approximately 11,000 kids per month. That's the kids portion. Unaccompanied minors, about 11,000 a month. It's ridiculous. And I wanted to tell you guys, because this is why I'm showing, and if you haven't been watching the show before, at the end of the show, I go back and I will put all of the links that I was looking at into the description so that you'll be able to look this up for yourself and to read it through. Now, I mentioned something about the red flag laws, and I mentioned something about COVID. And I want to be very clear. Before I get to that, I do want to mention on Tuesday, if you are in the southern tier, please come down to SUNY Broome. I'm a member of the Civic Engagement Board that is not associated with this channel in any way, other than the fact that I happen to be a member of the board. And on Tuesday, the 28th, we will be encouraging people to go out and get registered to vote. We will be talking about the 9th Amendment, and we will be talking about the 10th Amendment and your right to vote. And we hope that if you find that to be interesting, you'll go off and you'll register to vote for whatever you want to be. I don't care. You want to register to be a Green Party, a conservative, a communist, a progressive, a Democrat, a Republican. I don't care. Get registered, vote for whoever you believe is the best. But come on down, spread this around, let people know that we will be doing this on Tuesday at 11 and then again at 6:30, so that while I know you're going to be at work at 11, at 6:30, you're after work, you can come on in and we will do the program again just for you. So come on down. Let me jump back to the comments again. Let's see. What's my gun credit score? That's funny. That's funny, hot chicks. Okay. So let me jump back here. So I promised you I would explain what do red flag laws have to do with COVID and why is this a problem for you? And when I say you, there are 160 million people in America who own firearms. That's the estimate. 165 million Americans, roughly half the nation, which means that every other person that you meet owns a gun on average. 1 out of every 2 people. Every other person you meet has in their possession, in their home, they own a firearm. So this is going to affect lots of people. Now, just now, we had the U.S. Congress, the House of Representatives, passed the NDA, National Defense Authorization Act. They've just refunded our nation, our defense, national defense, $1.5 trillion. Stupid amounts of money. Anyway, and they threw in everything. Like every year, they threw in everything, including the kitchen sink, into the funding. They put in an abortion bill. There was an amendment to help fund so that they could fund the national defense, national security, to protect you and me. They threw in a bill for abortion. So if you voted for funding the United States, you had to vote for an abortion bill, a pro-abortion bill, a abortion on demand bill. That's insulting. That's horrendous. But you also were voting, if you voted to protect America, to have the border agents that we have until Joe Biden gets done with it, if you wanted to protect our military, you want to pay for our military and all their families and the VA, well, then you need the NDAA, National Defense Authorization Act. And in there was the red flag bill, which, as you can see, this is from Military News itself, which has almost everyone evenly put it out there. Very few people covered this story. In the 2022 National Defense Authorization Act, there is a red flag statement, which is going to be under the Unified Code of Military Justice. This is something they're going to be doing to punish members of our military. And what they're going to do is a military court protective order issued ex parte basis shall restrain a person from possessing, receiving, or otherwise accessing a firearm, and a military court protective order issued after the person to be subject to the order has received notice and an opportunity to be heard shall restrain such person from possessing, receiving, or otherwise accessing a firearm. This is section 922 of the section 559 of HR 4350. So you can look it up for yourself. Okay, what does that gobbledygook just mean? It's very legalese. It means that there is a red flag law. So if you are in the United States military and another member of the military goes to the military court and says, Joe is a danger to himself and others. Joe's wife is a danger to himself, to herself and others. Joe's kids are a danger to themselves and others. Anything of that nature. The military will come in, take all your guns, and then they take your family. Because that's what red flags do. Someone makes a complaint, says you're dangerous. The government goes in, takes everything, takes all of your possessions, takes your rights, and then they give you a summons and say, do us a favor, show up in court, prove that you are innocent, prove that you aren't dangerous. By the way, if you want to know how, in New York State, according to the assembly members that actually created the bill and passed the bill, if you buy a fork in New York State, you are a dangerous person. You have bought a deadly weapon. A deadly weapon in New York State is any weapon, any item that has been used in the history of mankind to ever kill someone. And if you own that within the last 6 months and someone says you're dangerous, that is the authorization they need. And they are trying to make this a national event. They are trying to make red flag laws a national law so that throughout the entire nation, anywhere that you go, someone can go, you're dangerous, take their property. And as a consequence, and this is true in all 18 states and Washington, D.C., if you have kids and the government has just come in and used their force to take away your rights and to take away your property, then that home is too dangerous for your kids. So the state, the government will take your kids too. So not only do you have to prove that you are innocent, that you are not a danger to yourself and the public. I don't know how you prove that. It's almost impossible. If you look at the numbers of red flag laws, almost no one ever wins that case. It is almost impossible to win. And then you got to try and get your kids back. By the way, it's going to cost you about $20,000 minimum for the two, which most people don't have sitting in their pocket. So good luck to you on that one. But what this is saying, and the reason why the government is doing this with the military is, and where is it? I want to make sure I get the right quote. There it is. Earlier this year, President Joe Biden urged Congress to pass a federal red flag gun confiscation law. The president urges Congress, and this is a quote, the president urges Congress to pass an appropriate national red flag law, as well as legislation incentivizing states to pass red flag laws on their own. In the interim, the Justice Department published a model legislation. They gave the public, each in the states, a way to make red flag laws. So they are actively going after our military right now, our military families, to be able to punish them, to disarm them, because they know how to use firearms. And if they can do it to the military first, then they can do it as a blueprint to everyone. It is a precedent. If they do it, if they can do it to the military, then it is easy to do to citizens, if they can do it on that national level. Now, this is where COVID comes into this. This is where the pandemic applies. The vaccine mandates apply. This is why it's so important to protest these vaccines, because it's not just about healthcare workers. It's not just about teachers who are about to lose their jobs. No, no, no. See, if you don't get the mandated medicine, if you refuse, you will be on a list. Your name will be on a list generated by the local, state, and federal government. That list will identify individuals who are a danger to themselves and to their communities. Because what has Joe Biden told us about COVID? If you don't have the vaccine, you are a danger to yourself and to others. You're endangering them. Therefore, you qualify under the red flag laws, which means the government, now that they have the list of people who are unvaccinated, can come out, they can take your property, and they can take your children under the red flag laws. This is why they want to make this a national bill. This is why it's so dangerous. And I know there's a bunch of politicians right now, some of them on the right, as a matter of fact, who are saying it's not such a big deal. They always put this into the bill. They always say that they want a red flag law, which is not true. But that they always put in this trailer, and then when they make the final, when the Senate votes on it, they're going to take it out and it won't count. Except this year, in 2021, Joe Biden said he wants to take away all of your guns. He wants to take away every semi-automatic hand. He wants to take away handguns. He wants to take away rifles. We've heard from Beto O'Rourke. We've heard from Kamala Harris, who have said they want to take away your right to own a firearm. They've already told you this. They've already told you that you're a danger. Joe Biden has gone on national TV how many times and told you, you are the danger. You are dangerous because you're not doing what he told you to do. Combine that mentality that says we need to punish you, and just like we're punishing doctors, we're going to fire doctors. That's what Governor Hochul is planning to do. She's going to fire doctors, and she's denying them the ability to get unemployment because they won't do what she told them to do. And now they're going to use that, and they have the right, because of the red flag laws, to turn around and then take away their guns, any firearms they own, and their children. And if you really think that I'm wrong about the children part, I've actually spoken to members of the assembly on the record, on this program, and I have published it. Yes, they can, and they will, and they have taken people's kids because someone else said you might be dangerous because you bought a baseball bat in the last 6 months and you own a firearm. I'm absolutely being serious here. This is the reality that we are facing. This is the reality that we need to deal with. And this is how it's going to affect you. because no one's telling you what's the consequence. Oh, they passed the red flag law. Well, everyone's going to be safe. Remember when they told you in 2018 that in New York State, just like the other 18 states, they mentioned the other 17 states. In New York State, they promised you, if we pass these red flag laws, you are going to be safe. We will lower crime. That was what Andrew Cuomo's told you. That is a lie. We have over 628 within the first 9 months of the law being in effect. We had over 628 U.S. citizens, residents of New York State, that had red flag laws placed against them. That is a fact. That comes from the criminal court system of New York State. We had some of them had their kids taken away. And you mean to tell me they're not going to use this against you? The same people who are telling you that you shouldn't have a gun in the first place, the same people who want to take away your guns because they want to take away the police, and they now want to take away the guns from the military too. They don't want you to have any defense whatsoever. They want to take it away from you. They have promised you that. They have gone on national TV guaranteeing it. They have fought for votes on this. And you mean to tell me you don't think they're going to do it? Why? Because Joe Biden's such a caring person? He's so caring that he's willing to leave Americans to just die in another part of the world and won't even blink an eye, won't even talk about it. They're gone. They're just dead to him. He doesn't care. Because why? Why would they not do this? I would love to hear from someone on the left. Please, someone on the left, tell me, why wouldn't the very same progressives that want to take away our guns, the very same progressives that want to defund our cities, the very same progressives that don't think we have a right to these things, why am I wrong for saying that, yeah, they're going to take it all? That these laws, the consequences of these laws are legitimate. I have verified it. I've spoken with many lawyers of many disciplines, as well as lawmakers, and what I am saying is correct. This is the chain of dominoes. It will happen at some point. I don't know whether that's a month after they get it done or if it's 20 years. I don't know. But I can tell you, this is the chain of dominoes. This gives them the right and the authorization to target you. They get to target every other American. 165 million people instantly can be targeted. And that should scare you. That should scare the living daylights out of you. That there is a government and a nation of the most strong of the a nation that is supposed to be all about freedom, and we have leaders who are setting up dominoes to be able to take away your right to property, your right to freedom, your right to choose, and to punish you and to take your children away from you just to make sure that they've punished you properly without ever breaking a law. By the way, did I leave out that part? No law has to be broken. You don't have to be, you're not told about this until the moment it happens to you. Until the moment that they knock on your door somewhere between 6 and 8 a.m. and they're coming to take your firearms and to take your kids. That's when you find out. And you don't get any rights until after all that's done, and then you show up in court at some point after the fact. Then you get your right to say, I'm innocent. Too late. They've already punished you. So is the newspaper. So have your neighbors. So is the local school. And mind you, remember, at the same time, and this is a fact, they are also trying to pass the American Families Plan, which includes the right of the government, the IRS, to go into your bank account and to track every transaction you make if that bank account has more than $600 in it. If you have a bank account that has more than $600, they can and will track every dime. You sent $100 to your kid because he had a flat tire at college. Whoops, you didn't pay taxes on that. You won the local poker game and you made a deposit because you and your buddies were playing poker or you bet on the football game and you won the football pool, you didn't pay taxes on that. They're tracking everything about you. And I mean, it's really this bad, folks, because again, here's local news. Governor Hochul's plan. This is coming from Fox 40 News. Local news. If Governor Hochul deems it necessary, she plans to sign an executive order declaring a state of emergency, allowing qualified healthcare workers from other states, big check here, or other countries, the ability to practice in New York State. She doesn't have that right. She doesn't have that power. She can't do that. Governor Hochul does not have the ability to just change our medical practices. She wants to put in substandard doctors and nurses from other parts of the world to take care of you. She is looking at having so many people that are going to quit, that are going to be fired. They're not quitting. They're going to be fired. Kind of like what we see at Upstate University Hospital in Syracuse is temporarily closing 22 of its 35 operating rooms. Jason, you got to call in to the other line. Don't forget, Jason, you got to call in 607-242-1582. They're going to shut down 22 of 35 operating rooms. Who's going to be helped by that? How long is it going to take Hochul to get people to come to New York State to suddenly see you from some other country? And by the way, she's not going to get them. That's a lie. Because according to the Cato Institute, on July 15th of 2020, a year ago, when things were in better shape than they are today, we saw that given the Association of American Medical Colleges projected... Hello, and thank you for calling in. This is No Soundbites Allowed. Give me 1 second to finish this thought, and then I'll let you speak. According to the American Medical Colleges, there's going to be a shortage of doctors between 90,000 and 40,000. 90,000 to 40,000. And that includes around the world. So, with that said, let me thank our guest for calling in. And can you tell us what's your first name?
Oh, it's Jason.
Hey, Jason.
Yeah, I just, you were talking about like the red flag laws and the overall government pretty much intruding more and more in your life when it comes to every single aspect. And
massively, yeah.
One of the thoughts that I had, and it's pretty apparent at this point, is that we're seeing the borders obviously flooded, and I feel a sense of, and then the situation with all the refugees that came unvetted in through Afghanistan into this country, you just get a sense of complete hopelessness when it comes to trying to protect yourselves. And the design, a lot of people will say that, well, they're just going to try to, Democrats want voters. But I mean, my thought is that no, this is for authoritarian power, because the thing is that these unvetted individuals are going to bring a criminal element and even a possible terrorist element that will require greater government intervention to protect us. And so in the scheme of protecting us, we're going to have new laws or new regulations that put the Patriot Act to shame. I mean, you think the NSA is a bad thing now? Just wait until what they have to do, and people will be willing to actually give away their rights to be protected once these negative elements start to pop their head in our country. And we've already started to see some of this sprout up in certain areas of the inability to vet these individuals. I mean, we've already had situations where some of the Afghanis where we've had these underage kind of like, well, they call them pedophiles, that slipped within the the country and stuff.
Well,
and,
to clarify that, there were grown men because it's part of the culture of Afghanistan, some of the Afghan evacuees and refugees, they married children, 12-year-old girls, which is against the United States law, but it's part of their culture, and parents wanted their kids to be in America that bad. That's how great this nation is. They gave their child up at 12 years of age, little daughters, to grown men, 30, 40-year-old men, so that they could come to America and be free. But it is a massive violation of our law. And rather than trying to deal with that, that was swept under a rug, and they don't talk about it anymore. So yeah, you're right. Go on.
Yeah, and not only to obviously they're using this, to get through and around our different laws and stuff. But the simple fact is that even that is actual part of a culture that, what is it? And that's the thing too, is that there's all this multicultural, and demand for acceptance, for these sort of, behaviors, and there is no American assimilation anymore. I think the one point that was made, I heard, was really good, was that, generally was back in the day, it was just like, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. But now it's just like, these people cross the border or come to this country. It's just like, we're here now, once we're in Rome, you do as we do, and so the fact of assimilation is just something that's not there. But like I was saying before, I think that my focus is really just on the fear of, the government getting to a point where, we're just not going to have rights, or we're not going to have, the ability to free. And we already see that going incremental, just bit by bit. But, the fact that, them allowing, such, large populations of unvetted individuals, and the national security is going to be just, we're not going to be able to control. And so, to what end will it end up leading? Like I said, I believe that we'll have a Patriot Act, probably something, far greater, within 2 years, that, we really won't have rights. So, these things that that'll take away, like, red flag laws and all these other things. I think those are, really kind of like small steps. But I think that, once we actually have a situation where these terrorist organizations or bad actors, start to really press things, like I said, people will probably be more willing to give up their rights, in the guise of actual, protection. And what I mean by rights is that more censorship, or not more censorship, but more intrusion into the government, looking over the shoulders.
Well, it's definitely where they're going in this direction. Did it make sense when I was explaining how the red flag laws using for those progressives, those democratic socialists like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who wants to take away the Iron Dome, a purely defensive weapon from Israel because she doesn't like them. People like Cori Bush, who has $70,000 in personal security because she doesn't like the police. When we're talking about these people, you mean to tell me that doesn't it make sense that they would use the vaccine mandate protesters using the red flag laws to punish them for daring to not do what they're being told, because AOC is that much smarter than all of us in her own mind. That's her personal truth, which I think is ridiculous.
It could. I'm not 100% on I see where that angle could come into, and I can see where, the government, could use the vaccine mandates, and even for example, is like, okay, what, it's like, if you're a person, that's the thing too, is like,
Well, I'm not saying that they're going to do it. I think it's terrifying that they could do it, that would be legal. That is completely legal.
Yeah.
And that terrifies me.
Well, you know what terrifies me is that way is completely illegal. They just do anyway. I mean, Joe Biden wants to use the CDC and just say, hey, you know what? We're gonna eliminate anybody from eviction. Pretty much taking all property away from landlords. I mean, they literally took property away from landlords, and the repercussions. I mean, the news isn't talking about it. They're not interviewing landlords. Like a guy basically owned a two-family rented it out and then basically has it taken away from him because the government tells him to.
If you know landlords that are willing to talk with me about that, I'll be happy to do an interview on them and publish it from their point of view. Most that I've talked to don't want to do that, but I'd be happy to.
I mean, well, it's that's the problem there's such an anti landlord. I mean, look, it's just if you want to like that, it's a frustrating thing for me because I look at it from the whole, property ownership, being able to build, your way up from the bottom. And these Marxists, these anti-capitalists, these hateful individuals, just want to just suck your wealth right out of your pocket, And it's just like and the people who are getting hurt are the ones who do not have a lot of money. I mean, they literally, what they did, they went out, like if they took a two-family and they bought that, that was their investment. That's their retirement, They don't have deep pockets, and then, all of a sudden it's just like, geez, and then, I mean, what are they being blamed for? What are they being punished for? For basically not keeping their money in their bank account, rather than actually investing it, Oh, Joe Biden's like, well, you're being, evil capitalist pig.
No. They will have access to every bank account, credit card, and investment portfolio you have. If you have more than $600 anywhere that is documented, that would be PayPal. What's that other one? Amazon Pay. If you have it in
Venmo, Cash App.
Anywhere you have $600 or more, if the American Families Plan passes, the government, the IRS, they're going to hire, I believe it's 16,000 new agents to do nothing but to track your bank account. All of them. Everywhere you have money.
But the interesting point about that is that the amount of energy and expenditure that they're actually putting forth to actually do that. And when they say that they're actually going to be able to stop and gain revenue, right, by picking up, people who are evading taxes, I mean, that's just a load of crap because the amount of energy, because if you're doing $600 transactions, I mean, that's you're dealing with, people who are making, hard. I mean, God, you're dealing with under, possibly like $50,000.
Well, think about this. Their promise was, we're going after all the rich people who don't pay their taxes.
Oh, it's a lie.
And that's why they want every bank account with $600 or more. Not $600,000, not $60,000. Everyone who has a bank account with $600 or more, every credit card with $600 or more, every investment of $600 or more. Not the top 1%, not the top 50%. Everyone with $600 or more in any financial organization, credit cards, investments, you name it, Cash App, Venmo, PayPal, they're going after you.
Yeah. And, I'll tell you what it is right now is honestly, when I think about that, just $600, it's like, well, it's got to be small purchases of products that the government wants to really tax a lot. And you know what they're going to do, I believe, is that when, there's a, full federal legalization of marijuana, the government's going to come in and tax it, they would like to do tobacco. The bottom line, though, is just that unlike, tobacco, marijuana actually is extremely, easy to produce. And the government's just not going to. And so if somebody's able to grow this stuff and sell it to his buddy, and have transactions like, $600 going back and forth, government wants to make sure that it actually gets its taxation of that. And they want that full revenue coming in. And so that, I mean, they're just coming up with new, ideas to lock down on that. But in the big picture, though, if you have any brains in economics, trying to go after that portion of the market to try to increase the revenue of the overall, trillions of dollars that we're going to go into debt for. It's not even going to go there.
Wait a minute. Are you saying you don't believe that Joe Biden told us that the inflation, remember on this program, I said in February, I believe it was second week of February, I mentioned that we're going to see inflation increasing throughout the second half of this year. I'm right. Joe Biden came out and said, that's only going to be temporary. And until last month when he said, oh no, it's actually permanent.
Yeah, the whole situation with inflation is, one of the problems that I have, within my perception of it is jobs, and people entering the workforce. And if people don't go back to work, then inflation is going to continue to go up. But the thing is that the only reason that people wouldn't go back to work is because the government is giving them a substantial amount of money, to sit on the sidelines.
Don't believe it. Don't believe
and
that.
Obviously, it doesn't help when the government, does things that drives people out of the workforce, like they're doing with the healthcare workers and other industries and stuff. But the question I have though is that how long will people be able to sit on the sidelines before their bank accounts dry up and they have no choice but to re-enter the workforce?
Depending on the average person, did not save any of the money that they received, the bonus money from the COVID payments that were being made, the extended COVID payments.
Right.
Most people had those used up last month at the end of August. And so a lot of people are living off of their savings right now as they demand $18, $20, $25 an hour, a living wage, as they were promised by the very same Democrats that gave out all this money. And that's why we have roughly I believe it's 8.6 million people who are out of work that are not looking for a job. That money any leftover money, the average person who received the COVID payments should be out of money by November. So
Right.
My expectation is there's going to be another check coming out to everyone.
And that's good. The good point, because the thing is that, if they do cut the money, more money, that will allow more people to sit on the sidelines, which will actually continue to put this, just this demand on labor, or this need for labor.
Yeah, but we don't have the money. So every time that we see another couple $1 trillion being spent by Joe Biden at a rate that is insane. I mean, Obama couldn't spend this much. No one has ever spent this much money in this little amount of time. Yeah. And what that does is it's inflationary. Your money is worth less. It is devaluing the dollar. We are quickly becoming a banana republic. It's a term from back in the 80s, where we saw all these South American countries, they just printed money all day long to pay off all the debt they had, and their money was worthless. It was like the Weimar Republic, which is going back to the 1930s in Germany, as they were trying to pay off their debt. It was worthless. It took wheelbarrows to pay for a loaf of bread. Literally, wheelbarrows of money. They have more zeros on there than monopoly money. We are destroying our economy at the same time that we are destroying the structure of our nation. When we're defunding the police, we're threatening people with mandates. We're looking to punish them for actually doing the jobs that we told them to do. We're looking to punish doctors and nurses. We're looking to punish law enforcement at the border and in our cities, in our police departments. We're punishing people for doing what we need them to do as a society. And the reason why they're doing it is they're promising, and don't worry, down the road, it'll be sunshine, rainbows, and unicorns, which has never happened in the history of the world and isn't happening right now. All evidence is telling us they are lying to us. And we see the media coming out and correcting themselves every 6 months saying, oh yeah, and that last thing we told you was a lie too. Why would anyone believe this stuff? You know what I mean? I mean, am I missing something here, Jason?
No, you're right. And it's extremely disturbing to see, the direction that they're taking this country. I mean, look at one of the things I noticed too is that look at Joe Biden. He continues to tweet, and he's really been up in this, trying to push out, warfare against the rich because he really wants to, they got to raise taxes, and he's really trying to set the pace. He's projecting, saying we got to tax the rich, got to tax it, got to be fair, got to be equitable, and they're coming for it. And
when I'll believe that? When I will believe that statement? We got to tax the rich. We're going after the rich. When I see that AOC in her $30,000 dress at the Met, when I see Joe Biden, who's a multimillionaire, actually donate more money than I have donated. Let me show you something. I'm going to put it on screen. You won't see this. Yeah, I know you're on the show. I have $1. $1 American. I can donate this to the IRS at this moment. You can voluntarily donate anything you want at any time. I have $1. This is more money that I would donate to the IRS than Bill Gates, Oprah Winfrey, Joe Biden, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and the entire Democratic Party combined over the last decade. $1. And they're telling you that they're going to tax the rich? They are the rich. They won't even donate $1 combined in 5 years. Actually, 20. I've done numbers before. So they're lying to us. It's a lie. And it's that easy to prove.
Well, they want the power. I mean, they want the money. They want to be able to tell you, how to spend it on their end from the government. What's ironic is, Mike, is that I remember listening to Warren Buffett.
Yeah.
I think it was just recently, and he was talking about, how he's got a lot of wealth, and what he's been doing is a lot of philanthropy, and he's been donating a lot of the money. Well, the thing is when they do that, they don't get taxed on that money that they donate. And so it kind of bypasses the government. And the thing is a lot of people have been highly critical, of that sort of process, or actually for anybody to donate, because the thing is if you donate money, guess what? The government doesn't collect.
That's not entirely true. Let me correct that slightly for you, because there's a limit over any amount. Once you cross the threshold of $250,000, it used to be higher. Then you start getting into that break. So up until then, you're paying taxes, and there's a different break.
I think there's a percentage, though, isn't there?
No. The way around that is to do what the Clintons did, and that's to have the Clinton Foundation. You have a nonprofit organization like the Clinton Fund, which gets in millions of dollars, especially from like Haiti. They promise they're going to help people in Haiti, and this has been researched to death from all of the private funding organizations that actually rate all of the donations, all the 501c3s. And what they found is 80 cents of every dollar donated to the Clinton Fund was paid to Hillary, Chelsea, and Bill Clinton, and only 20 cents out of every dollar actually was used for anything else. That paid for all the administration and actually giving out money. They literally were net for every dollar that was donated to the Clinton Foundation, 5 cents went to whatever it is, like Haiti or any other organization. 5 cents out of every dollar. 80 cents went to their pockets to pay them a salary. That wasn't taxed because they're a nonprofit.
Yeah, they had been taxed, because the thing is, any income that they get, they'd have to be taxed.
No, because it's a pass-through from a 501c3. Nope, they weren't getting taxed.
Yeah, I had to look into that more. This is one of the problems with their tax code. It's so damn complicated that you can't frickin', understand where they are. Because even, like I said, though, it doesn't make sense to me, though, is that why, with Warren Buffett, well, maybe he was doing something. He had to set something up in a way that he could basically, because I mean, look, they've got all their money. A lot of these guys who have that money.
He has passive money.
Huh?
I know how Warren Buffett gets paid. He gets paid through dividends from his stocks.
Yeah.
He's got a passive income, so it's a lower rate. That's why he
Right.
makes so much money.
Right. And so the thing is, though, is that, a lot of these guys, they want, and this has always been the question, is that when do they start, donating their stuff, do they wait until they collect, a massive amount of money, because obviously it, appreciates over time, or do they do it throughout their life? And a lot of these guys have been, like Bill Gates and others, they've been, pretty much just cashing out their stock holdings and then donating that. And the thing is, I don't understand is what percentage of that gets taxed, and how do they get taxed on that? And
That's why they have accountants.
yeah, and that's the problem that I have is that it is so complicated that I don't understand it. And that's
You're
the
not
thing, too.
supposed to understand it. That's the
Nobody
whole
does,
point. Yeah, but you're not supposed to. You're not supposed to understand it because let's think about it. The lockdowns, when they did the lockdowns, they killed small business and they knew it. But they helped big business. The same people were telling us, I hate big business and big business has to pay more and we need more money from the big companies. Well, Amazon made money like no one's business and they pumped the money to Amazon. They killed mom and pop businesses to give Amazon more money. And now they're saying, oh, we need to raise taxes. They're going to raise taxes, what, 0.5%, 2% on Amazon? And they just made 150% more money than they've ever made before. Their profits are through the roof. Yeah. They don't care.
No, they don't.
And they're going to then, and the reward is, oh, you raised my taxes 5%. Fantastic, but you also shut down every mom and pop competitor I ever had, and I made 150% more profit than I've ever made before, a net 150%, 145% net profit. By the way, here's a donation to your campaign fund. Thank you. Keep doing the good job. That's the reality.
Yeah, it absolutely is. I mean, the amount of, well, see, one of the things too, though, is that, yeah, I do look at the numbers of these billionaires, and everybody keeps saying that, the top, billionaires during the pandemic added, $1 trillion to the wealth. Well, technically at this point, it's all in stock holdings, which, if the, Biden administration continues to push the policies that, they haven't planned, well, I mean, if they crash the stock market, I mean, all that $1 trillion could be cut, to a negative, $2 trillion. But at the end of the day, though, is that it still will be last man standing because all the mom and pops are already, out of business. And, Amazon, even though they'll lose maybe $3 trillion, they still will be the last man standing and have, control of the market in that realm. So, but
no, I get it. So, I mean, it's all, but you notice the problem is, and I can tell, we lost some people when we're talking about taxes. We're losing some people about some of the issues. It's okay, folks. I understand it's boring. It's dry. It's not sexy and exciting, but it's important. And the fact is they want it to be even worse so that you're not paying attention, so that you're going to say, and then what's going on with the sports game? What's going on with the Kardashians? What's going on with George Takei and Arnold Schwarzenegger? And be completely distracted so that when you don't pay attention to that, you miss the fact that, oh, and by the way, they're getting into your bank account. Oh, by the way, they're also going to come after your kids. They're going to take your property and you'll never have committed a crime because that's not required. They're going to let anyone into this nation. And you want to talk about voter manipulation? How about this? 1.3 million new people. They imagine that we have 300,000 more new people coming into your community. And if they're like New York, they're able to get a driver's license, even though that's illegal. And in that driver's license, they can register to vote. That's 300,000 new people who are dedicated to the Democrats that just gave them everything. They're going to vote, and your vote now is worth even less than it was worth before. That's what they're doing when you're not paying attention. All these little things, and that's why we try and show that on the show. This stuff is all connected.
Yeah, and that's part of
It's
that.
not a conspiracy theory. It's literally, I'm showing you the legal sources, and it's telling you this stuff is connected. There's a reason why they're trying to get rid of doctors, and at the same time that they're trying to get rid of doctors, there is a global shortage of doctors. Did you know that, Jason? That there is a global shortage of doctors?
Yeah, well, part of the reason was, though, for that was because of the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare. I mean, it drove out a lot of individuals from getting into the medical field. If you had a choice of being a doctor or something else, back during, the time that Obama was, pretty much blowing up the entire healthcare system, a lot of people opted to actually not go and become a doctor. The amount of energy and money and resources had to put to go into that field, I mean, they could become something else. They can get into engineering. They can, become a lawyer. They can do, I mean, a whole lot of things. I mean, you're looking at the very top percent of educated individuals, the top of their class, and yeah, you could always see that there's a lot of altruistic individuals who just really want to help people, want to get into the medical field. But guess what? At the bottom of the day, people want to make money. They want to have a family. They want, to, be able to retire and live comfortably and not have to worry about the government, looking over their shoulder every 3 seconds saying, hey, you can't charge this, or you have to do this, or, we're going to sue you for this liability, or, and so it just came to a point where, if you're a smart individual, you just don't get into that field. And the thing is that, for the longest time, because it was so, bad, during that time it was bad, our country was depending on foreigners to educate themselves to get the opportunity to come to this country. Well, the thing is, though, is that, quite frankly, though, is if you look, the only thing you have to do to come to this country now is fly, hop on a plane for wherever you are, and then basically just cross the southern border. Then why would you want to have to go to freaking medical school and fight your way for a visa to actually become, to become an American? Why would you do that now? It's just,
Well,
so
let's put in.
we have de-incentivized people to actually work hard and become doctors in the entire world, and that's, just our policies.
Well, then let's think about this, because as I'm showing on the screen right now, this comes from News Medical Net, which is a certified organization, and they were talking about the physician shortage. And I just want people to understand what Governor Hochul and some of the other governors throughout this nation, like in Whitmer and Newsom in California, by 2025, it's projected. 2025, it's 2022 now. 2021. It's projected that the demand for physicians in the United States will exceed the supply by 46 to 90,000. That's 12,500 to 31,000 primary care physicians. That's 5,000 to 12,000 medical specialists, 23,000 to 31,000 surgical specialists. That's a ridiculous number. And she thinks that we are that far behind on how many doctors and nurses that we need. And on Monday, she's going to just fire them. Same thing with teachers. She's going to fire teachers too. And their answer is, oh, but we have substitutes. So we are getting the B, maybe the C team. They're looking to get people from overseas who aren't qualified to be in the United States. That's an insanely crazy process where you have to start all over from the beginning as a doctor. You have to start all the way over from the beginning because almost no one has the qualifications to actually come to the United States to be a doctor. So we're getting the B or the C team that she's going to go and beg to Schumer and Gillibrand and Antonio Delgado and say, screw that, screw the regulation, lower the standard, bring over the B team or the C team from some other country and bring in their doctors to take care of mom and pop. And we think that's going to be a good thing? That we're going to have the B and C team teaching our kids, and we think that's a good thing? That's going to help make things better? I don't understand that. I don't understand it.
Yeah, well, what's interesting though is what it looks like to me is that it's nothing more than it. I mean, what she is doing technically, she is running, a medical corporation, And what is happening is that these people quitting the jobs and making choices, making their own choices, are against what, her corporate policy is. And so what she's doing is just she's, pretty much sticking it to them. And so them being fired is really more. It's kind of like a strike, because the thing is that to keep their job, all they have to do is basically just get injected, and that's the bottom line,
But what if you can't? I mean, I talked to a doctor. Actually, we have a video of a doctor from a week ago who's talking about one of his associates who has cancer. He's on chemo. If he gets the vaccination, he'll die. What about him? And there's no exemption for that. I had a Uber driver yelling at me the other day because he's like, well, no, you just don't understand. There's medical exemptions for religion and medical. I'm like, no, there isn't. There's not a single one. You don't get that exemption. So you want to kill those people? He said, get out of my cab.
Yeah. Well, my point was not about those people, but that mentality. I mean, she's railroading right over all them. Actually, it's not just her. It's Biden as well too, and the administration at the federal level. Unless you're, of course, a postal worker and you can do whatever you want, but that's another story. But the thing is what I'm saying is that she is trying to muscle and strong arm all these doctors to do what she says and demanding what they should do, and it's very ironic. Well, that they don't have they don't have the pushback to be able to fight her and just get their way. And the question is though is this is one of those things though, it technically is a strike. So what's going to happen is that these people are going to leave the job, and there's going to be a massive shortage. And the question is who's going to break first? Will these people re-enter the workforce, or will the governor be forced basically to cave from public pressure?
They are going to re-enter. They're going to another state. They're re-entering in a different state. The doctors, there is a shortage. They have a demand. I've spoken to several doctors who already have jobs lined up in other states.
Yeah.
And they're going to get paid more money.
Yeah, so what is she going to do? I mean, you can't just she's going to have to reverse policy and try to incentivize.
No, she won't. No, she won't. What she's going to do is she's going to initiate the National Guard. All the doctors that work in the National Guard, she's going to call them in. She's going to turn around to Chuck Schumer and to Biden and say, you need to change the standards on visa regulations. And we're going to beg and plead other countries. And since most countries make more than enough money where they are and they don't have enough doctors, we're going to take them away from countries like Africa, where they desperately need them. And those guys want to come to America, and we're going to invite them in. And Africa is going to have more sick people and fewer doctors. We're going to destroy the third world, and eventually we'll get more doctors in here, and that'll help take care of America. Eventually. In the meantime, there are going to be very, very few operations or people. All of our local hospitals are already at half. The emergency rooms, they're at half staff already. We're just going to shut down. There's a rumor that one of the hospitals in the Southern Tier is going to shut down completely. I just showed you that in Syracuse, they're shutting down, which means the average person is going to have worse health care and more people will die because Hochul is like, nope, I don't care. You have to do what you're told. That's terrifying.
Yeah, well, like I said, I mean, that's where the standoff is, I mean, well, she can, is she a Cuomo? I mean, is she willing to let, people die? I mean,
yes.
Quite frankly, I always thought that she was sitting in the corner watching Cuomo, pretty much pillow all the, people in retirement homes, and then she just stepped right into his job, when he was ousted. But hey, I guess, we'll see what happens here, I mean, because that there's no way that she can beg all day long, to get doctors from a foreign country, but that's not going to be quick enough to,
nope,
deal
it's
with
not.
the demand that's going to be brought upon us, in the next couple of weeks.
And that's why
the political pressure will be put on.
Well, that's why they're demonizing doctors right now, saying they're disgruntled. That's why they're saying nurses are disgruntled. The same people who were working double shifts for the last 2 years in the face of COVID every day without any vaccinations, they were doing it. These very same people who've been saving lives for the last 2 years, they're going to go after those people. That's why they're demonizing them right now.
How do you think politically the Democrats are going to do if they continue down this path? Because, I mean, when it comes to the mandates, they're just not very – the vaccine, itself is not very popular among, different demographics. I mean, look at the minority, black demographic. What's the percentage now of vaccinated versus unvaccinated in that community right now, they say?
35%.
35%, and the other, percent, they basically are just dead right, don't want to get it, for whatever reason. And, the question is that how much, pressure, are they going to put on that? And the other question is too, is what is the demographic breakdown of, healthcare workers, that are nurses and, whatnot that are actually in the medical field as well too, So, politically, I don't know if they're trying to do this strong arm and they figure if they can win, they could break everybody, then they've got them for life, But I honestly, I don't know. I mean, I see the rallies that you've been covering, and I'm starting to see a pushback at least on that front. And I do see, the potential of them just having to say, look, you know what, we're going to have to withdraw that. But I don't know. I guess we're just going to have to see in a couple of weeks to see which way it goes,
Well, here and I'm going to let you go in 1 second, Jason, but we just got a response from Facebook stating that a gentleman mentions that he's gotten more job offers in the last few weeks than in the last few years. That locally lost a boatload of nurses, techs, doctors, and maintenance workers, and no real hope to have those positions refilled. This is not an instantaneous thing. This is a problem that is going to have an immediate impact, and people are going to say, oh, well, they should have done what they were told. What's the next thing they're going to be told? What's the next thing you're going to be told, folks, in America, around the world? I mean, in New Zealand, they shut down the entire country because one person got COVID. Literally, one person got COVID. They shut down New Zealand. We've got police, actually the military, walking around in Australia, and they're beating down pregnant women because they dared to violate a lockdown. We've got riots going on in France right now because they were promised that you didn't have to have a vaccine passport, and now they have to. We have the United States. We've been promised no vaccine passports. That we had Joe Biden and Fauci both said there would never be a mandate in America. They couldn't do it, and now they're doing it. So what happens next? As we keep seeing over and over again, lie and lie and lie. News media comes out, they give us a lie. 6 months later, we get the truth. Every single time. So what happens in 6 months, a year from now, when we find out who knows what? What else has been a lie that we've been told? And then what do you do?
Will we ever know?
Oh, we'll know. See, that's the one nice thing. The one nice thing about America is we are such a big bureaucratic mess that once the wheels start turning, they don't stop. That's why Brandt was talking about at the beginning of the show. I showed you on his own show with 1.2 million people watching. He detailed how the Clintons lied. They actually had made up the entire Russia collusion. They violated the law and they got away with it. But you know what? Now some of their people are being arrested. That was back in 2017. It's like 5 years ago almost. And those guys are now getting arrested by the FBI. They're now getting charged 5 years later. Why? The wheels turn real slow. The gears take forever to turn, but they always turn. We'll find out. But by the time we find out, will we still have the power of the Ninth Amendment? Will we still have the power of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence to be able to say and do anything about it? Or will we just be depersoned disappear from YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, just wiped off of the map and told, oh, well, that person disappeared. They don't count anymore. Hey, Agent Black, good to see you from in England. You know what I mean?
No, I totally hear you on that. I do follow Brandt from time to time to see what he has to say about a lot of things.
I don't.
Kind of like, huh?
I don't. He's far too liberal for me.
Well, he is well, that's the reason I follow him, because I kind of really try to see where his line of thinking is and, his evolution over time, where he's come from. And, the bottom line, though, is just that one of the things about certain liberals that I just can't stand is just that at some point, it's just like, they never want to hurt anybody's feelings, or they don't want to be disagreeable, not to the point where they'll definitely be disagreeable against conservatives, because conservatives are always restricting, people from doing everything they want whenever the hell they want to do it, and then I think that's part of his stance, where it's just like, you want to do what you can. And, he has kind of, I wouldn't say he's changed his ways. I mean, he came from a guy who used a lot of drugs, and now he's gone away from that. And now he's come to a point where, he's off drugs, and he's kind of, reformed his ways in certain areas. And I wouldn't say he's become, I would say, compared to the very liberal, person he was, he has come, more towards a more conservative kind of way. But I think it's one of those things, though, it's like, he's very agreeable and does not want to confront, people. And so
I don't think he's a bad guy. I'm not saying I'm never notice on the show. I never say that I think the average rank and file Democrat are a bad person. No, I do think that groups like Democratic Socialists of America, Antifa, BLM, that they're abusing people, that their leadership are using them for political gain and to get houses, kind of like Patrice Cullors, who went out and bought 5 houses because everyone donated to BLM. I think that's abusive. I think that's criminal. So we see a lot of that. Bernie Sanders. Oh, everyone loved Bernie Sanders. He's such a great guy. And he has 3 houses. He's a multimillionaire, and he's a self-avowed communist. Those things don't go together. That means he's abusing his power. He's abusing the people who are following him. That is criminal to me. Not criminal as in against the law. Criminal as in it is such a terrible abuse of people and their emotions.
Yeah,
that's
he's
the problem.
Selling a product, right, which is socialism. And what is he doing? He's, using capitalism. It's just like...
Yeah, and I would say the same thing about what we see with Mr. Brandt. I respect that he has an opinion. He's also I believe he's a multimillionaire. If not multimillionaire, he is absolutely more comfortable than 99% of the world. And he's not hurting for money or fame. And gee, that doesn't really fit the principles he's talking about. And I think that's kind of abusive.
See, this is one of the falsities.
Before we go further, because I do want to give other people a chance to speak as well.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's all right. But we've been on for a little while, so I do want to give other people a chance, because that's why we have the phone. But we'll pick it up again, Jason.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. Thank you. And folks, you too can call in to the program. The phone number is 607-242-1582. And I'm always happy to hear anyone's voice. And yes, Jason agreed with me. Some people don't. And I'm perfectly fine with hearing what you have to say. I wish I could get Russell Brandt to get on here and say, hey, let me tell you why you're wrong, Mike, why I think that I'm perfectly fine. I'd love to hear that. I want to hear someone tell me from Kathy Hochul's office, or someone who follows her and believes that she's doing the right thing, to explain to me how healthcare in New York is going to be better because of what she's doing. I want to hear from Antonio Delgado from his office or one of his supporters and tell me why it's okay for him not to mention for an entire month a single word, actually longer than a single, it's been about 2 months now, to not mention a single word about any American, any Brit, any Australian, any Canadian that have been abandoned in Afghanistan because of what Joe Biden has done and how he did it. I want to hear from anyone who follows Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and please explain to me why she wanted to defund the Iron Dome in Israel, making our only ally in the Middle East, the only stable country in the Middle East, and take away their defenses literally 3 months after we just saw Hamas taking $85 million from the Biden administration, using it to buy rockets from Iran so that they could throw 4,000 rockets at the people of Israel. And the only thing that stopped that from being a complete insane bloodbath of moms and kids was the Iron Dome shooting down, I think it was about 95% of all those rockets. And Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is crying. She's crying on national TV because Israel was able to save its people with a purely defensive weapon. Something that stopped 95% of the rockets meant to kill moms and kids. And she's crying because she didn't get to defund that. Because that's supposed to make people better? I'm sorry. I don't know. Well, I'm not sorry. I don't get that. It doesn't make sense. And it's not in anyone's best interest. But if there is someone who wants to tell me, Mike, you're wrong, it's the best thing that could possibly happen. The people we left in Afghanistan, their rights as Americans don't matter. The Brits don't matter. If you want to tell me how that makes sense, please do. If you want to tell me how getting rid of doctors who have been doing the job that nobody wants to do and very few are capable of doing, and getting rid of them is good for our health care, please explain this to me. I want to hear it. I'm not going to beat up on someone. I want to hear it. I want to hear the explanation. And I want to hear the facts on it. Not someone saying, well, my truth says, I don't care about your truth. That's your subjective. I don't care. I'm giving you can tell me, this is my conclusion. Here are the facts and here's my conclusion. I want to hear that. But you know what? The news media won't even, they're not even trying anymore. I mean, think about it, folks. There have been, in just my community, and I know across New York, there's been thousands of people who have done the same thing. I know across this country, there are thousands who have done. I know in England and in France, there have been tens of thousands, actually hundreds of thousands to be exact, have shown up in events, all against these vaccine mandates. And in my local community, with 7 news agencies, 7 official news agencies, they have a grand total of coverage that doesn't even make up one of the events that I've covered. They don't even cover half as much information and as much coverage as I have done in even one of my coverages. The shortest thing I've done, I think, was 25 minutes. They don't even come up to 1/5 the time that I have spent providing coverage in 7 news agencies combined. That's embarrassing. It's also really insulting. And it means that's a problem. That's a problem that's going to come and hurt us. Why are they hiding this? Why can't we talk about this? Why is it such an evil thing to say, I made a choice? Why is it such an evil thing that doctors who are informed know more about this than everyone? They're on the front lines dealing with it, And they're demonized because they made a choice in a country that is defined by personal freedom and choice. Agent Black mentions, same here in the UK, lots of protests weekly, no coverage. Why not? How can you tell me that in a community, when you see a percentage of your community come together spontaneously, hundreds of people, thousands in some places of people are coming together, and you're going to tell me that's not coverage? But you want to tell me about, you know what they do want to tell you about? Because I'll show you. Here's what they consider to be news in my region. This is what was the news. So they couldn't talk about the protest. Agent Black, you're going to love this. This is the story they went with, September 23rd. They didn't talk about 4 different protests, but instead they did a story about a diner, one diner that opened up after the lockdowns, the pandemics, the shortage of workers, the new taxes, and the new regulations. They're talking about one store. By the way, didn't make up for the fact that we lost more than one diner in this very same community from the very same reasons just a few months ago. We've lost several, but this is the new story they want to put out. And as you can see, there's what, a dozen people involved in this? There were hundreds. And they're telling you that it doesn't exist. Those people don't exist, that your neighbors do not exist. They are literally depersoning your community actively. They're just wiping them out. They won't tell you that. Where are they getting the doctors from? Where are these miracle doctors showing up when there is a global shortage of doctors? Who's replacing them? How long is it going to take for them to show up? Why do we need the doctors, many of which have natural immunity? Why do they need to do this? But they don't want to answer those questions. Not here in the United States, not in the United Kingdom, not in France. They want to tell you about, diner opened. Yes, 4 of your other diners that you really love, they all closed forever. But there's one diner that's open. Aren't you happy? Doesn't that make up for everything? Don't get sick from like anything. Forget, and I don't mean, from the pandemic. What about getting the flu, a cold, pancreatitis, the appendix, all the stuff, you break your arm, all the things that normally happen to people. Who's going to take care of that? What, you're supposed to run around with a broken arm for a couple of months until Governor Hochul figures out where she's going to get a doctor to show up in your community? By the way, wherever she's getting the doctors from, it's not enough. There are thousands of doctors and nurses that are going to be gone. As we were just hearing from Mike, as he mentioned, there are boatloads of nurses, techs, doctors, maintenance workers. They're all gone. Where's she going to get those replacements? And guess what? That's just in one community. I know in Oneida, we're getting the same thing. I just showed you the news in Syracuse. The answer is no more surgeries, which means people will die. That's the answer. People will not get service. And so where are they going to get it? Well, these doctors, they don't have enough doctors for everywhere in New York State, let alone in the United States, when we already have a shortage. Doesn't that mean it should be news? I mean, if you think I'm wrong, if you think that doesn't make sense, that's fine. If you think I'm misunderstanding it, that's fine. Tell me why. But every time I've asked someone about this, and we've had this conversation with many, many regular civilians and others, I always get the same answer. Well, but I want you to. That's great. I want $1 million. Not going to happen. We'll live without it. It's not that I'm trying to be insensitive. I'm actually looking at the reality of it. And I'm looking at greater damage being done than needs to. Hochul and Biden, Boris Johnson, and Macron, they're making the situation worse. New Zealand is making it massively worse. Ask yourself, how many people have died because of suicide since we started this pandemic? How many people have died because of drug overdoses? How many people are suffering from depression and addiction? Because I can tell you, according to all the data and all the reports that are out there, no, I'm not a scientist. I don't need to be. I can read the reports that the scientists have put forward, that all of the bureaucrats have put together. The numbers are all up, absolutely, in some cases astronomically up higher. Domestic abuse, way up. We're doing more harm under this demand of a lack of freedom. It's not good. And I don't know a nation that isn't suffering. Agent Black is from the United Kingdom. You can tell me if I'm wrong, but England is suffering as bad as we are. And England has 83% of people vaccinated, and they still have the same problems we're having right now. In New York State, we're at 74% vaccinated. Remember when they told us we needed to hit 75? We're at 74.6% vaccinated in New York State. We're 0.4% away from 75. 75 was the number we were told we hit herd immunity, and this all goes away. You mean because we missed by 0.4%, everyone has to be punished? Thousands of people are going to lose their jobs. The unemployment rate is going to increase, and we're going to have more businesses fail because of 0.4%? And if I'm wrong on that, where's the news media showing us the data saying, well, no, it's not quite right? Please explain that. I don't know, folks. These are some very difficult, dark times. We have the news media lying to us consistently. At the same time, we have some people who are starting to notice this is a problem. It's not a conspiracy theory. This is the news. These are the events around us. These are the events around the world. And we're all suffering in the same way, unnecessarily. And we should be troubled, and we should be speaking out. We should be reaching out to our members of Congress, our members of government, members of the parliament, reaching out to them and saying, you have to stop this. This isn't making sense, and you're making it worse. You're not helping anyone. You're hurting us to help yourselves. Far too many politicians are getting rich and powerful, and far too many Americans and people around the world are losing their freedom. But we've been on for a little over 3 hours, a little bit longer of a show. So I'm gonna go now. I'm gonna run over to my buddies over at the Belmar and try and relax and maybe forget some of the news for a minute. But in that time, I want you to think about some of the things we're talking about. I want to remind people that there are options and that you should have your voice heard. And I will be on October 9th, I will be covering this event. Hopefully not by myself, but I will be there covering the entire event as I have for all of them. I do expect this week coming up that we should have an interview with one of the organizers of the protests, speaking exclusively with us about what's going on and why they are doing their protests. I also want you to know, and please remember, on Tuesday, if you can, at either 11 a.m. or 6:30, to come down to SUNY Broom at Tichenor Hall to join us as we're going to be talking about the 9th and 10th Amendments, your voting and your voting rights. And hopefully, if you're not registered, you'll be able to register with the Broome Tioga League of Women Voters. You can register for whatever party you want. I don't care. You can be a Democrat, a Republican, whatever, a Libertarian. I don't care what you want to be. If you're not voting, hopefully this will give you a reason to vote, because it is your power that's on the line. with that said, folks, I look forward to hearing from more of you. I hope if you've been here this long, or even most of it, please do like, share, and most of all, please do subscribe. It makes a difference. I really appreciate it. And until later this week, I want you all to be well. I look forward to speaking with you again soon. This is Michael Voss on No Soundbites Allowed. Thank you, each and all.